big, strong, physical guys.
Skill, power, speed.
They dominated games.
Flair is in. He scores! Oh, the Legion of Doom is weaving their magic tonight. Save made by Hextall.
Ultimate competitor. He chased people down.
He was mentally so focused on the game.
Everything that could go right went right.
Philadelphia Flyers have broken the National Hockey League record. Dornhofer, but he's all alone as he comes back. Dornhofer.
They're scrapping, they're clawing, they're upstart.
Didn't take a whole lot from anybody.
An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Win today.
We will walk together forever.
The Philadelphia Flyers, one of the most storied teams in NHL history. And when I say storied, I mean storied. There aren't many franchises that can match the famous teams and the colorful characters that played here. And I don't think any franchise in the last 40 years has been as loved and hated as the Flyers. Loved by the legion of fans who bleed orange and black, and hated by, well, just about everybody else. Hi everyone, I'm Bill Clement. And many of Philadelphia's most cherished sports memories happen right here at the Spectrum. I have a little first-hand knowledge of that because I played here for 4 seasons. I was here when the Flyers transitioned from fledgling franchise to hockey superpower and captured the hearts of fans on Broad Street and beyond. The Original Six, a term well known to hockey historians. The Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, Detroit Red Wings, and Chicago Blackhawks all captured the attention of sports fans throughout North America.
Well, I was in the record business years ago. A friend of mine and I were having a drink in New York City, and he said, look, I got an extra ticket, to the Garden tonight. The Rangers are playing Montreal. And I said, what's that all about? And he said, well, it's the National Hockey League. Would you like to go with me? I said, yeah, I'll go. I said, I didn't have anything else to do that night, so we went to the old Garden, and I fell in love with the game instantaneously. It was, without question, the greatest spectator sport I had ever seen.
The buildings were full, and they'd been full for years and years, and the competition in between the 6 teams was absolutely at its highest.
Riding that popularity, the time had come to enlarge the 6-team league.
I heard that the National Hockey League was expanding from 6 to 12 teams. I thought that it would be great to apply for a franchise.
Ed Snyder, who was working with the Philadelphia Eagles at the time, thought the city of brotherly love would fall for hockey just like he did. But other cities were applying, and Philadelphia's history in hockey was not good.
All the other applicants for the 6 franchises were from cities that had pretty successful minor league hockey operations for a number of years. Philadelphia was the only one that hadn't. They had 7 or 8 minor league teams that had failed. There had been one quickly aborted attempt in the 30s to have an NHL team. So there was no history of Philadelphia really being enamored with the sport at all.
However, Ed Snyder, along with Bill Putnam and others, persisted. And on February 9th, 1966, their hard work was rewarded.
This is the year of the great expansion. For the first time, the league will be composed of 12 teams.
Clarence Campbell presided as the teams entered the league. The Philadelphia Flyers, Minnesota North Stars, LA Kings, Pittsburgh Penguins, St. Louis Blues, and the California Seals.
The 6 new teams would play in one division. But before they took the ice, the Flyers had a lot to do.
One of the requirements for expansion was to have a building that would seat at least 12,000 people. So they built the Spectrum, and it was really the first modern arena of any kind in Philadelphia. And they built the building in a little more than a year, so that it was open in time.
But who would actually take the ice wearing the orange and black? That process was led by GM Bud Poyle and head coach Keith Allen.
We basically bought the Quebec Aces, and it gave us people like Andre Lacroix, Jean-Guy Gendron, and other players that were on our original team, and it helped us tremendously. And in addition to that, Keith Allen worked for a year prior to our starting date and scouted the 6 clubs that were then in existence, and we had, without question, the best expansion draft of any other team.
As far as the goalies were concerned, we thought they were the 2 best young goalies available, and fortunately we got both of them.
I have to admit, at the time I was disappointed.
Joe was probably the loudest guy in the National Hockey League.
Oh boy. That was depression for a while.
Ed Van Impe had played with Chicago and was a hard-hitting, rugged defenseman. Unfortunately, I wound up in Philadelphia, and Gary Dornhofer was all-out 100% of every game. He gave everything he had every game.
I was probably like the other guys. I had to look on the map. Where the heck was this Philadelphia?
I was the second player taken by Philadelphia, and I was working for the public works department in British Columbia, and I was flagging people by. I was a flag man, and this person got by and says, "I hear you just got drafted." And the guy said, "What do you mean drafted? Yeah, you get drafted by Philadelphia." I said, "What?" I went to my boss. I said, "Oh God, I got to take the rest of the day off. This is very depressing for me because I thought I had a good year in Boston, and I played with Orr, and to go to an expansion team, it was very difficult for me."
My first exposure to Philadelphia was at an Eagles football game, and they introduced a guy on the starting defensive team. I swear to God, all 50,000 stood up and booed. And I said to the people that were there with us, "What in God's name did this guy do last week to deserve it?" And apparently he had a bad game, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, what are we getting ourselves into here?"
Perhaps the toughest task facing the new franchise would be winning over the Philly sports fan.
Philadelphia, wasn't really a great hockey town when we first arrived there, and it took a lot of work by Ed Snyder and the rest of his staff to try to get people out there.
When we were brand new and we were ready to play our first game in a few days, the city said, "Well, we'll have a parade for you, and we'll start at City Hall, and we'll go down Broad Street all the way to the Spectrum." And we said, "Fantastic."
And the advanced publicity was the Iceman coming, and they had all the players in convertibles, and we were downtown at noon hour.
We paraded down Broad Street, to the Spectrum, but there was one issue. Nobody came.
There were more people in the parade than were watching the parade.
People were looking, they were wondering, who the heck are those guys?
And I said to myself, God, I don't know if we're going to last here very long in Philadelphia.
The team's first game was on the road in Oakland on October the 11th, 1967, where they suffered a 5-1 loss. But it was the home opener that was on everyone's mind.
We played Pittsburgh, and I remember we had about 7,600 people at the game. The president, Clarence Campbell, was there to drop the puck, and I remember there was a guy named Bill Sullivan, and he was an older guy, and he had come from the Quebec Aces. He scored the winning goal in the game. We won 1-0, and I remember he almost didn't get in the building. The guard didn't think he was a hockey player. He looked too old to be a hockey player.
The Flyers went unrecognized at first.
It was interesting when we started here. I was able to get a lot of tickets, and spread them around to people that I got to know, especially golf professionals. So I kept them supplied in tickets.
If you have a good crowd behind you, it will help you perform better. And that was the part that was a little bit difficult at the beginning.
But the Flyers did perform well, and soon enough the fans were filling the Spectrum.
We got a pair of tickets, went to the game, and really enjoyed it. And we ended up buying season tickets. Now, a season ticket in those days was less than $100.
When it took off is we played back-to-back games in November against Chicago and Toronto, and both of those games were sold out, and I realized hockey was going to take off in Philadelphia.
But just as momentum was building, Mother Nature had a surprise in store.
There was a bad storm came through in February, and we lost part of our roof.
The workmen went ahead, patching the 150 by 50 foot wide opening with fiberboard and tar paper. But while they were busy trying to restore the roof to its original state, a lot of people, including city officials, looked at the chunks of roofing scattered all over the grounds and parking lot and began to wonder whether the roof could really be considered safe at all.
We didn't expect we'd be playing on the road because of the roof falling off.
The last 29 games, we were like vagabonds. We played all over the country in various rinks.
Our home games were played in Canada, and I think we played one in Madison Square Garden, Quebec City, and Toronto. So it was just another road trip.
Despite the difficult circumstances, the Flyers went on to claim first place in their division. A 7-game playoff battle with the St. Louis Blues ensued, and though they lost that series, their first year was anything but a failure.
We hung in there and ended up in first place, and we're getting some real good crowds, and so it was a pretty good, successful first year, I think.
However, it would be the Flyers' second season that forever changed the franchise, when they found themselves facing the St. Louis Blues again come playoff time.
The St. Louis Blues, basically, they were a big physical team, and they would intimidate a lot of teams, and I would have to say that we were one of them. They kicked the hell out of us in the playoffs. They just manhandled us. When they swept us, I remember our owner, Ed Snyder, saying this will never happen again to us.
They had a great vision, and the vision was to structure the team so it wouldn't happen again.
One thing the Philadelphia Flyers were going to be known for is that no one was going to outmuscle us, beat us up, or be tougher than we were.
A few months later came the first step in changing the face of the team.
We drafted Bobby Clark, and that was really the turning point for our franchise. I was at the draft table, and it was a very interesting draft.
He slipped to us in the second round, and we couldn't believe it, and we took him, and I can remember after we took him, Jimmy Skinner come up to me and says, look, we'll give you 3 or 4 players for him, and Bud Boyle said, no way.
As soon as he arrived, you could see that he was the real deal. And every year he was getting better and better. And about the same time, we had Bill Barber and Jimmy Watson and Tom Bladen. And there was a big trade where we got Lonsbury and where we got Flett. And there was a lot of moves in a short period of time that added talent and also added a lot of toughness.
Don Selesky, Andre Dupont, and Bob Kelly were all part of Philadelphia's new rugged style, but it was the fists of Dave Schultz that changed the Flyers forever.
When he came up to us, he was a tough, big guy, and he loved to fight, and he took that role very quickly.
He was fearless, and the players get nicknames pretty quickly, and his nickname was the Hammer.
When you're challenged in any way, everyone can see what might be going on, or whether someone's trying to intimidate you or whatever. You've got to respond.
Schultz brought the Flyers the start of a physical presence that helped make us successful, I think.
Schultz is on him, wrestles him down.
Then a few other guys would join in. It would be like a little brawl.
Oh, and this crowd is in an uproar now.
During the 72-73 season, where they really got physical, and there was a road trip where they got involved with a big brawl, and then the next night they won the game just being physical and being dominant. And it was basically Jack Chevalier who was writing the story, and Pete Cafone was the headline writer, and they actually came up with Broad Street Bullies. It was used in a headline, and it just stuck.
At the time we were going through it, we never viewed ourselves as bullies or as a team that was out to intimidate other teams. It just sort of happened. The camaraderie that grew amongst the players and the way that we came together just evolved, and it evolved quickly.
Whatever we did, we always did it together. You never had a separation where 5 guys go one way, 5 guys go another, 5 go another.
Whoever got off the plane first, if that person had to go to the bathroom, we all went to the bathroom because we were like sheep.
There was no better than Bob Clark, who denied it every time, but he'd be sitting at the bar and a guy at the bottom of his drink would find some teeth there. Of course, Clark, you couldn't get away without, you knew it was his at that point because he had a take them back and put them in his mouth.
That's how tight it was. Just little gags, you know, you're waiting for your luggage at the carousel, and all of a sudden you'd see all your clothes coming around. Well, somebody got a hold of your bag first, emptied it, and now you're standing there with people with all your clothes and personal belongings going around the carousel. So it was a lot of fun being with the guys.
The Flyers' unique brotherhood was nurtured by a unique man, Coach Fred Shiro.
He was the glue. He says, guys, I will treat you like men until you prove me different. And he was perfect for our mentality, our behavior, everything.
Freddie was ahead of his time, I really believe, in a lot of ways, and the ways exactly is studying video, instilling a system that would give you an opportunity to win.
I believe in precision and discipline, and that's the way I was brought up. Everything has to be exact, everybody has to be on time, everybody has to conform.
You know, I can remember Freddie Shiro sending letters to the wives and saying, right now, you're not going to feel number one. He's not going to look at you as you're the primary. The teammates, the team is going to be far more ahead of you. And don't take that personally, he would say, but the rewards will come.
Freddie's hockey brilliance was undeniable, but his personality and methods often left a lot of people wondering.
He put a bucket of water on the training table and left. He never said anything to us.
I remember asking Larry Goodenough, what's Freddie like? And he looked at me and said, you know, I couldn't tell you, I've never met the man.
And Freddie came back in and he called Ricky McLeish and he said, Ricky, come over here, I want you to roll up your sleeve. And Ricky went over reluctantly and rolled up his sleeve and he said, I want you to put your hand in that bucket of water.
And he got the nickname The Fog from just wandering into rooms and suddenly being there in a restaurant or a bar and then suddenly disappearing.
So Ricky put his hand in the bucket of water and he says, now pull it out, pull it out. He said, see that hole that's left? And Ricky said, there ain't no hole there, Freddie. Freddie said, well, Ricky, that's how much we're going to miss you when you're gone.
Well, I think he wanted to be mysterious to his players, and I think that was very successful.
He would have us out there doing drills, and then all of a sudden Clark would say, you know, Fred, this makes no sense at all. He said, exactly. I was waiting for somebody to challenge him. So he would challenge us by things he did on the ice, but then what made it better yet, he'd come in and write his one-line slogans on the blackboard before we go out.
The mystery will go forever as to whether Freddie the Fog really was reality or was something that he created. Any of the players who played for him and any of the people who followed the Flyers during those years knows the guy was brilliant. So it's hard to envision a brilliant guy like that actually being in a fog, as they said.
He just had different ways of doing things, and you know, we would do anything for him. And whatever he said, we believed was gospel, and we went out, and he's a great guy to follow as a leader.
By the end of the 1973 regular season, it was clear that GM Keith Allen had made all the right moves. He had the pieces in place to take Philadelphia to the next level. Only the Minnesota North Stars stood in the way of postseason success. The teams battled to a fifth and deciding game, and in sudden death overtime,
Dornhofer, but he's all alone as he comes back. Dornhofer,
The guys that were on the line, Lonsberry and McLeish, were hugging me. The fans were screaming, so I assumed right there that the puck went in the net.
It was very, very important for us to take the next step, and we thought we were ready for it, and sure enough, when Dornhofer scored that goal, it was a big moment in our history. And we moved forward at that point.
We went on against Montreal and lost 4-1. But when that series was over, we couldn't wait for the next season to start. We knew we had something that was pretty good.
traded away 2 years earlier, goalie Bernie Parent rejoined the Flyers. With Parent back in net, the Flyers now had it all. Talent, toughness, and a star in goal.
And here come the Flyers, and they're playing this style of hockey which fits the city of Philadelphia perfectly. I mean, it's a blue-collar city, and they're playing a blue-collar style. They're fighting for every inch they can get. They're scrapping, they're clawing, they're upstarts. It all fits into the perfect mix at the time.
A lot of teams dreaded the fact they had to come into Philadelphia and walk down the tunnel in the back and get dressed to go out and face the Philadelphia Flyers.
Our game, a lot of it was intimidation.
If you're tough, you play tough.
It was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Try to leave a message when we would lose and bang people a little harder just so they remember from the last time.
And we're not through yet. There's still pushing and shoving.
I can remember one time one of the guys started a big brawl in Philadelphia, and all you did was hang on to somebody that you knew so you wouldn't get the crap beat out here.
We caused a lot of havoc on the road. We didn't take a whole lot from anybody. And I think our reputation, it wasn't just me. I mean, it was our whole team.
O'Brien and Barber at it.
And wherever the Flyers went in those days, the buildings were sold out.
Fans are just hollering and screaming at us. I'm sure they're like they've thrown stuff.
Headline the LA Times. The animals are here. Lock your children up, they're loose.
There's a lot of buildings where we had to be taken into the building on a bus and also taken out of the building on the bus.
Everybody loved to hate us. We loved to be hated. It inspired us even more because going into somebody else's building and taking 2 points from them was all we wanted. We didn't care how, we didn't care where, it didn't matter. We just wanted to win the games.
The brawls were the sexy thing. They got most of the attention, and they were wild and they were crazy. But if you have the guys behind you, guys have your back, so to say, it's going to make the skilled players' jobs easier. And it is important to realize that the brawn with the skill is a lethal combination.
The Flyers' deadly mix produced a first-place finish, victories against the Flames and Rangers in the playoffs, and a matchup in the Stanley Cup Finals with their hated rival.
The Bruins were the dynasty in the making. I mean, they had Bobby Orr, the best player in the game. They had Phil Esposito. They had these great players, and they had dominated.
The Flyers were the underdogs because we'd never been there before. We'd never done it before. And so a lot of things were pretty darn accurate in what was being said.
They hadn't won at Boston Garden since their very first game in the building. I mean, it had been ages. And how are the Flyers ever going to win the series if they couldn't win a game at Boston?
But there's one thing that was left out, and that's to a man. Every player in that room believed we were better than the Boston Bruins and that we were going to win the cup.
Philadelphia's confidence showed in Game 1, but Bobby Orr's goal in the final minute provided the Bruins with another Boston Garden victory. The Flyers' troubles continued in Game 2 as they fell behind 2-0. But Captain Bobby Clarke changed Philadelphia's fortunes.
Deflected to Flett at the point. With a shot, it's score! Bobby Clarke on the tips in front. It goes to Gilbert's legs for a goal.
Then, with less than a minute left,
Center pass. Gilbert, he scores! Dupont scores and ball set up. And Moose gets the shuffle.
Andre Dupont's goal tied the game, sending it to overtime.
And it was really an up and down overtime period. I mean, both teams could have had 3 or 4 goals. I remember Johnny Busick walked in stone cold from the blue line in, and Perron just got his block running. And about 2 minutes later, we come back and
Schultz behind the net. Centers. Flett. Finds the Clarke. Shot! Oh! Rebound! Score! Bobby Clarke scores! Scores the game winner!
The overtime goal turned out to be important. We played them even the first game, we played them even the second game, and as the series was moving on, we were getting stronger.
Inspired by their Game 2 win, the Flyers returned home and dominated Game 3. Coach Shiro knew a Game 4 victory would push the Flyers to the brink of a Stanley Cup championship. He reminded his players of the sacrifices necessary to reach their goal, in classic Freddie style, a chalkboard quote.
Win today,
we will walk together forever. And I think that's a great quote.
And boy, there's not a truer statement than that.
When you get involved in something like that, and certainly at the highest level, it's special.
Schultz and the Flyers responded to the message. They won Game 4, putting a stranglehold on the series.
the 5th game was in Boston. It was a total war. It was really a physical series. So we lose that game 5-1. The next game was back in Philadelphia on a Sunday afternoon.
It was pivotal that we won Game 6 because Game 7 in Boston would have been, a huge climb.
To help ensure victory, the Flyers brought their good luck charm, Kate Smith, to the Spectrum. Her pregame rendition of God Bless America was a tradition started years earlier.
We had a vice president by the name of Lou Scheinfeld, and on his own, without really talking to anybody, he noticed that there were people that were not standing for the national anthem. So he decided to play God Bless America, Kate Smith's recording. And everybody stood up. And of course, we went on to win the game. So I said to Lou, look, we won the game, so I never want to know when you're doing it. Just do it when you think you should. And he would pick specific games and play God Bless America, and our record was outstanding.
Well, when Kate Smith sang, the roof came off. If you don't get a few chills in you, there's something wrong with you.
Well, I think it electrified pretty well everybody in the whole building. And once the building got going, you know, it gets you going. You know, you're not really nervous, you're more like pumped up.
And shortly after Kate's stirring rendition,
We're in the right-hand corner. Again, I guess it was against Greg Shepard, and I won the draw back to Moose Dupont.
Dupont throws it and
I was lucky to tip it. And it just changed directions enough to, you know, screw up the goaltender and go in the net.
the Flyers clung to their precarious lead as Bernie Parent made save after save.
It was in the third period, and we had a face-off in our end, and I skated by Phil Esposito, who was going to take the draw against Oris Kinderchuk, and Phil turned to me and he said, "We're not going to score on that guy tonight." That was Bernie Parent, and you know, he instilled that kind of confidence in us. But when you not only instilled it in us, but intimidated a team or put that kind of doubt in a team's mind, that's pretty significant goaltending.
A short while later,
ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers have won the Stanley Cup!
Fans that were outside in the parking lot listening to the games. When the game was over, the doors were opened. And that's the fans that came on the ice, because there was tons of fans. We couldn't really skate around.
People would not leave the building. They would not leave the area. And people from all over Philadelphia were coming down to the building.
You have to bring yourself back to Philadelphia in that time. The Eagles had won in 1960, and then it pretty much gone downhill ever since. The Sixers had one of the worst teams in history in the early 70s, and the Phillies weren't quite to the point where they started to grow into the mid-70s and into the late 70s. And so it was a sports town dying for a championship.
By the next morning, we were driving down to the University of Pennsylvania to meet the drivers in the cars for our parade. And people were just absolutely everywhere.
It turned out to be 2 million people. Just the whole city was just full of joy, you know. It was a beautiful thing.
It was just an incredible feeling. That's the memories you have and treasure.
the Flyers and the city of Philadelphia reveled in the magnificence of a Stanley Cup victory. Yet others felt the champions were a fluke.
It's supposed to take a lot of time to develop a championship team, not 6 or 7 years. And for the Flyers to climb that high, that quickly, I don't think a lot of people believed in them.
But Keith Allen did. If the champs were to repeat, he knew more firepower was necessary. In another brilliant move, he acquired sharpshooter Reggie Leach from California. Leach was paired with his junior teammate Bobby Clark and Bill Barber on the top line. Their success was instantaneous, earning them the nickname, the LCB line.
To Clark, to Leach, shot, score! Leach going in, he's to the score! Leach ties it up for Philadelphia, that didn't take long.
Leach's 45 goals would lead Philadelphia that year as they returned to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Flyers challenged this time the Buffalo Sabres, led by the French connection.
What we wanted to do was prove that the first year wasn't a fluke. So it was important to us. We'd kind of owned Buffalo. I guess it was kind of the similar situation where Boston figured they owned us the year before. We owned Buffalo at the time, and we felt very confident that we could win.
The Flyers' ownership of Buffalo continued as they took the first 2 games at home. the Sabres would need a miracle to get back in the series. Game 3 would be that and more.
Flyers jumped to an early lead, and as the game went along, the steam started rising up from the ice.
The Odd was one of those old buildings that was not air conditioned, and they couldn't control the heat and humidity. And the fog got so thick that literally the goalies couldn't see the blue line. So shots were coming at them from basically, out of the fog.
The uncommon now seemed common.
This thing comes out of the ceiling, and it was a bat. And Jim Lorentz took his stick and knocked it out of the air and knocked it down, and it was kind of withering there on the ice, and Ricky McLeish took his glove off and picked it up, and I said, Ricky, you could get rabies from that damn thing. And Ricky said, what are rabies?
The fog persisted, and so did the Sabres. They erased one Flyers lead after another and sent the game into overtime when...
Farrell coming to center, dumps it off the boards in the corner. Robert going after it, he scores!
It did get a little dicey when they won the Fog game in overtime and then followed that up with a win. Now, if the Sabres had just won the game in the Fog and then the Flyers come back and won Game 4 and gone up 3-1, then okay, it was a fluke because of the Fog. But when Buffalo then won the Game 4 as well, I mean, you're talking about a situation where this series has been turned around and it's dead even. But the Flyers are pretty dominant in Game 5.
A 5-goal outburst pushed Philadelphia to the brink of another Stanley Cup.
I can remember the late Punch Imlach. He said, I'll tell you right now that our Buffalo Sabres will be back in Philly for the 7th game.
Punch's prediction emboldened the Sabres as they battled Philadelphia for every inch of the ice in Game 6. The game remained scoreless until the 3rd period.
And I remember I got the puck from Jimmy Watson. Watson gave it to me, and I dumped it off the corner, and Kelly got it, and we were always taught by Freddie to come around and just tuck it.
Kelly has it. Oh, Freddie scores! Bob Kelly for Case of Tasty Cake and the Flyers are on the board. It's 1-0. The Hound does it again. Kivichuk blocks it, and it comes to the near side. Kivichuk back to Clement, a breakaway. He scores! Bill Clement for a Case of Tasty Cake, and it's 2-0 Flyers. Clement mobbed by his whole bench as the Flyers come out en masse.
It's not always about the key guys scoring the goals. What it is, it's the other players that chip in to get you over the hump. And I think that was the case in that game. I think Billy Clement's goal was kind of the icing on the cake goal.
It's all over. The Flyers have won the second in a row. The Flyers have won their second consecutive Stanley Cup. And the whole Flyers bench is off the ice.
It's just incredible that for the second year in a row, we were the world champion. And when you look at this, you look at the earth we live on, and you say that you're the world champion. It's a beautiful thing.
I think it was validation to a certain degree, but we knew that we were more than, quote, quote, the Broad Street bullies. But as far as, I guess, saying, hey, we did it once, call it lucky, call it a fluke, you do it twice, you're a pretty darn good team, and that's what we felt we were.
I think the second time we won it, a lot of us, because we were flying back to Philly, took the time to spend a couple hours and enjoy the feelings. We sat with our teammates and enjoyed the winning, because you're always scared it's never going to happen again.
As the Flyers paraded down Broad Street, they stood on top of the hockey world. Even more people would attend this celebration than the previous year, and the crowd swelled to more than 2 million fans. The love affair between Philadelphia and the Flyers was now cemented forever. Many hoped for a third parade in 1976. But before the Flyers had an opportunity to deliver another cup, they faced an even greater challenge.
This was 1976. This was the height of the Cold War. The relations between the U.S. and the Soviets were very, very cold at that time. They brought the Russian teams, came over to play an 8-game series.
They sent two teams, the Red Army team and the Soviet Wings. The Red Army team was, except for one line and one defense pair, was the national team. And they had 4 games, an NHL team had not beaten them yet.
We were the defending Stanley Cup champions, and we were the last game in the series. And they came to play us, and probably the first time in our history that the entire hockey world was rooting for us, because we were known as bad boys in those days, and nobody really cared for us that much. And here we were playing the Russians, and everybody wanted us to win.
Shiro had a really, really good plan for how to play the Russians. He'd studied them for years and years and years, and he had a team that was the antithesis of Russian hockey, but he knew how to counter what they do.
And Shiro's plan at that time was just stay in your position, let them pass it around. They got to bring it to you, so the first time they got the puck, they're whipping it around the ice. And it looked pretty, but we weren't chasing it, so they had nowhere to go, and they become discouraged real quickly.
And then all of a sudden...
Over the line on the right wing. Holes looking for a man up the slot. Karlamov is bumped by Van Impe.
He looked like he got hit by a bazooka and went down.
But it was a good hit. It was a message being sent, and we made our point. Okay, you went through the league. Now you're facing, in my opinion, was the best team in the league.
This is incredible. The Soviet Army team is going back to the locker room. They are leaving. They are walking out.
And they're taking their sticks with them.
They were very upset. They thought it was a dirty hit. And of course, I left my seat immediately and ran down to the locker room. And Alan Eagleson was there representing the Players Association, and Clarence Campbell was there, the president of the National Hockey League. And I said, what's going on? And they said, they won't come back on the ice. I said, tell them we're not going to pay them if they don't come back. And sure enough, they mumbled to each other in Russian, and they came back on the ice.
All right, Leaks with no scores, the Flyers on the power play. Into the left wing corner, they all chase. Leputko there first, tries to ice. Back to the point, Barber dumps it in on the net, score!
I remember the goal because I was the one that took the shot and Reggie tipped it in. And then we got the ball rolling. And then we never looked back.
Up the ice, we have a breakaway from McLean. He'll go right in, shot, score! Makes the place on a great play.
Zaleski on the right wing. Zaleski the drive, safe, and rebound!
Joe Watson, the Smithers Thundermouth, who gets maybe 1 or 2 or 3 a year, but Denmark, the Flyers using the Soviet.
In those days, the defense didn't do that very often. Particularly Joe Watson, who was a terrific defensive defenseman, but very rarely scored. I think Shiro told him he set hockey back 10 years.
And the game is over. The final score, the Philadelphia Flyers 4, and the Soviet Army 1. A beautiful masterpiece of a performance.
The whole hockey world was thrilled because we totally dominated them. And in Pravda in Russia, there was a big cartoon with this big, giant guy with a club with the Flyers logo on it, beating up on a little Russian, and I loved it.
The Flyers rolled through the rest of the season, but a three-peat was not to be. Injured goalie Bernie Perrant was unable to play in the Stanley Cup Finals as Montreal swept Philadelphia, ending a dynasty and an era.
I think the game probably changed a little bit. It was time to move on, and I think the toughest thing is letting the winning team go. It's very, very difficult to do, and I know through that period of time, seeing your buddies go, Boris Kinderchuk and Ross Lonsberry, Dave Schultz, Eddie Van Impe, Joey Watson, especially for me because I started and finished my career in Philadelphia, it hurt.
But the most painful loss for Philadelphia was the premature passing of Barry Ashby to leukemia. While his stats were ordinary, his character was extraordinary. His impact on the Flyers organization to this day is unforgettable and everlasting.
He did whatever it took to win a game. I mean, if he had to block 10 shots during the game, he would do that. If he had to put his face in front of a puck, he would do that. He was the type of individual that if you were having a rough night, he would come up and console you and find a way to get you on track.
Well, I think he was the ultimate warrior. He played hurt all the time. And when you saw that, you didn't, and you figured you had a little bruise here and there. It was pretty minor compared to what he had. And he touched everybody.
You could say the players were his #1 priority. He wanted to do whatever would be necessary to be with the team and with the group and anything else.
He had the dry humor, but firm, a pleasure to be around. He was a no-nonsense guy, simple as that. He didn't like any BS. It was black and white for Barry, and I have the utmost respect for him for that. He was a great man that we lost, and it was sad to see.
It's just a great honor that he has been memorialized as much as he has, and to have his jersey retired, the first one ever for the Flyers, and then the award named after him. And the Flyers are a great family.
Although many of the names synonymous with the Cup years were gone by the 1979-80 season, there were plenty of new heroes for Flyers fans to cheer on.
Ben Wilson was in, Kenny Linsman, Paul Holmgren. We had Bays, Barnes, Busniak, you know, they called them the 3 Bs. Pat Quinn was the coach.
I don't care where, if you put your stick down, just put her down. If you're going to try to shoot, that alone is not going to get a shot up.
He let them crisscross, gave them a lot more freedom, and it just clicked from day one.
They win a game, then they get just hammered in Atlanta. I mean, just hammered at the old Omni, big Flames team.
We're outside the Omni in Atlanta, and I remember like this, it was yesterday, and I'm along with Pat Quinn, and Pat looks at me, and ooh, she's a tough night. But I said, I really like our team.
We bounced back with a big win, and obviously over the next few months, nobody could have expected what happened.
Everything that could go right went right, and it was an adventure virtually every night, and a new hero coming across every night.
They had 4 lines that were absolutely relentless, and they played so much in the other team's end. They won a lot of 6-4 games. They won a lot of 5-3 games.
We had some injuries. We didn't have the full lineup, but that's how we played as a team.
You had the feeling that it didn't matter what we did, we were either going to win it or tie it. I can recall a couple games where we were 2 goals behind with 3 minutes to go, and we knew we were going to tie it. And that's how confident we got going.
And the other fact, we had Pete Peters in net, who was a rookie, was absolutely phenomenal.
And Phil Muir was our other goalie, and he played extremely well too.
From about 20 games on, we were starting to get a lot of recognition from the whole league. Every game was building up, and everybody really wanted to beat us because the record was 28 by the Montreal Canadiens before that.
The Penguins jeopardized the unbeaten streak as the Flyers hoped to tie it.
It's getting late, and everybody's wondering, is this it, is this it? And then sure enough, here comes a defenseman to the rescue.
I remember that game where Ben Wilson was heading to the crease and got the puck off of his skate and maybe touched it in, and they were trying to say that he kicked it in, but no overtimes in those days. A tie was really important for us. Well, the record-breaking game in Boston, of course, it was in the Garden, where the Flyers had had little success over the years because Boston was such a powerhouse.
It was like a playoff game, like a Stanley Cup final game. Boston didn't want us to get that victory in their building, and we wanted it, and we were a pretty dominant team in that particular game.
Trying to get away from Clark. Loses. Clark fires and scores. And it's back left point, Watson. Scored! Jimmy Watson. It's back to Barber. Fires, scores, Bill Barber.
That was a perfect game. And they would throw perfect games once a week in this thing, but this was terrific because the Flyers hadn't had great success in Boston previous to winning, the Cup, obviously. That had been a house of horrors for them. And that house of horrors turned into another crowning achievement for them.
The game is over, and the Philadelphia Flyers have broken the National Hockey League record.
To do it in Boston Garden was just what a feeling. The fans at the end of that game gave us a nice standing ovation, which I thought was really nice of them, appreciating how we had played and what we had accomplished.
Way to go, Bobby Clark! Good game, boys. Damn it, out the way, boys. Hard work. long way.
Philadelphia's streak continued, reaching an astonishing 35 games without a loss, a record unmatched in all sports. But even the Flyers were bound to lose sometime.
The odds are definitely with the North Stars tonight. We will do it. Guarantee it.
And it was a freezing cold night at the old Met, and it started. And it was obvious it was all going to end at once. And 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals. And there was no magic coming back from the Flyers. They'd run out of all that mysticism.
They scored 4 or 5 power play goals against us in that game. Just happened where one after the other, it just snowballed after a while. And probably a lot of relief on the players, just like wondering when it was ever going to end. But 35 games without a loss was amazing.
I find that hard to believe it'll ever be touched again. And I'll never say never, but it's going to be a difficult thing to try to do, to match that team's success in that period of time.
After slumping towards the end of that streak season, they played pretty well in the playoffs. They'd eliminated the Rangers in 5 and had beaten the North Stars in 5 and sailed in looking like their old selves.
Well, we're about set to go. The Stanley Cup, the Philadelphia Flyers against the New York Islanders.
I think we were fairly evenly matched going in, and they must have had close to 20 power play goals in that series. It was just unbelievable how well their power play clicked. They picked us apart.
Costly penalties, a referee's error, and injuries all undermined the Flyers despite their best efforts.
Coming in with Nystrom. Tonelli to Nystrom. He scores! Bob Nystrom scores the goal. The Islanders win the Stanley Cup.
You can't look at excuses. We did go into overtime. We needed to score the overtime winner and didn't get that accomplished.
That's what happens. Some days you get a good balance, sometimes you don't. So, you know, we don't cry over spilt milk. It would have been nice with a 35-game unbeaten streak, but, you know, it didn't happen, so you live with it.
Philadelphia continued to strive for another championship during the early 80s, but were unable to deliver. Times were changing, and so was the roster. By the end of the 1984 season, the organization's heart and soul was ready to retire.
Allow me to be privileged to welcome you to this night of nights. First, let me set the tone. No sadness tonight. We want this to be a joyous celebration, not of the end of a career, but the fact that we were privileged to have that career unfold in this city and in this arena.
Clarkie is a legend and great player, a good teammate, and well-deserving of that kind of an evening. The Flyers deserve that. And he was a very, very big part of everything that happened, us winning.
Please, we implore you, just this once, indulge yourself to the fullest, revel and bask in the glory of tonight's emotion.
It was just a great honor to play with him for all those years, but just the leadership roles, I mean, it's something that's born inside you, and he's a great guy to follow.
How could you not look at his example of leadership and his work ethic and his commitment to the game and his drive and his passion and not be inspired by it?
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have did all the things I had done, because he pushed me to the limit, and he would be always on my back. Come on, Ray, let's go, let's go.
He hated to lose. You're on the ice, he'd yell at you, he'd scream at you, he'd spear you, practice, so he got mad at you. He didn't care. He just, all he wanted to do was win.
That ovation kind of hits you right in the heart at how much he's meant to this Philadelphia area over the years.
You wish you didn't have to go through something like that, because it means the end of playing hockey. And for me, that was the most important thing in my life, other than my family, of course. But when you get an ovation like that, it's so special.
And now, as the number 16 banners are unfurled, I ask you to join me in saying, thank you, Bob, we love you.
when a team raises your jersey, it's so special. Those types of things are lifelong memories for you, special lifelong memories.
I will cherish forever this evening, and if I had my choice, I'd love to do it over again.
With Bob Clarke retiring, it was the end of an era in Flyers history. The last holdovers from the Broad Street Bully days were gone. Well, not completely gone. Bob took over as the Flyers GM in 1984, and everyone in Philadelphia hoped that his time in the front office would produce more parades, culminating in a grand celebration right here at Independence Hall. After 4 unsuccessful postseasons, Flyers management rejuvenated the team with a strong crop of rookies, including Derek Smith, Murray Craven, Peter Zezel, and Rick Tocchet.
Tocchet was so important. Zezel became a superstar in this town because of his looks, and the women just loved him. It was like going to see a rock star, and that was just part of the whole aura of that young team.
The talented youngsters meshed quickly with veterans such as Mark Howe, Tim Kerr, and Dave Poulin. The final piece of the puzzle was to hire a head coach to lead them. Surprisingly, the Flyers chose Mike Keenan, a relative unknown, to take the reins.
Mike Keenan came in, and you're thinking he better be as good as he presents himself. I don't know if he copied Scotty Bowman's jaw going up like this, but he had the jaw going and he had the chewing ice like Scotty, and I'm like, boy, this guy better be something like Scotty. There's gonna be a disaster. These guys will be all over him.
Keenan was an intense personality who didn't hesitate to berate his players, rookies and veterans alike.
Let's go, let's go, let's go! Hurry up! Right there, Timmy, body! Center, Tocchet!
While not everyone welcomed his methods, on the ice the team responded, making a late season run and capturing a division title.
Mike Keenan treated players like a container of toothpaste. You know how you think there's nothing left, but you always get a little bit more? Mike Keenan would squeeze that little bit more when you think there was nothing left.
Perhaps the single most important player on Keenan's resilient Flyers was the team's young goalie.
Pelle Lindberg really carried the Flyers hockey team. He played a lot like Bernie Perrant. He wasn't a huge goaltender, but he had great reflexes and was able to cut the angle down very, very well.
Lindberg led the Flyers into the playoffs, where they defeated the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders in the first 2 rounds. In the conference championship, the Flyers took a 3-2 lead on the Quebec Nordiques and looked to put the series on ice. But in Game 6, they found themselves down 2 men and struggling to hold the lead.
On to the left side to Marois, back to Stockton. Short-handed breakaway by Dave Poulin. He's going right on in. Shoot, go!
Well, I think that killed Quebec right then and there, and we ended up winning the series. But that's a goal that I think every fan will remember for a long time.
The Flyers would finally meet their match in the finals as they faced off against Wayne Gretzky and the defending Stanley Cup champion Edmonton Oilers. Several of Philadelphia's key players were injured. And though they managed to win the first game, the Oilers stormed back, taking 4 straight and seizing their second Stanley Cup championship.
Gretzky has got it up high.
We, not healthy, just couldn't play with them. That was just the bottom line to the whole thing. They were just too good.
Although the season ended in disappointment, the team had recaptured the Flyer spirit. And Pelle Lindberg was awarded the Vezina Trophy as the league's best goalie. In a touching ceremony, the award was presented by Lindberg's mentor, Flyer great Bernie Perrant.
First of all, I want to thank my teammates. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. But the man I really want to thank tonight is the guy standing to the left of me, Bernie Perrant. He told me everything I know about to play about hockey in America. Thank you, Bernie.
I had the pleasure to work with him for a couple of years, and became like a son to me. And I really care. He was a good person, a great goalie, but he's a good person. I loved him.
Pelle was a person that just loved life. A real fun-loving guy that everybody liked.
He was like this big kid, and he had every toy you could ever imagine. That's why I love Pele. It was all a big game. It was fun. It was just a blast. I never met a player who just had such a good time.
With Lindbergh in net, Philadelphia's hopes could not have been higher as they entered the 1986 season. Mike Keenan had everything in place for another run at the Cup, and the team wasted little time rushing out to a 12-2-0 record.
After Keenan's first year, the team goes and finds everything's like bright future for the Flyers, and then
this is the red Porsche Lindbergh was driving. The condition of the car tells the tragic story.
Driving home in the early morning of November 10th, Pelle Lindbergh crashed his sports car and was killed. His death stunned and saddened the hockey community and devastated the Flyers family.
Looking over there this morning and seeing the empty stall was probably the toughest things that I've had to do in hockey, and I know that this morning was the toughest practice I've ever gone to.
Outside the Spectrum, American and Swedish flags hung at half-mast.
That was a big blow to our organization. Personally, we really were very fond of Pelle, and he was a phenomenal young goalie.
The Flyers honored their fallen teammate, then tried valiantly to play on. But the reality of Lindbergh's death took a heavy emotional toll.
I think it was about 6 days after his death. I think we had a game against Edmonton. We were playing at home, and I remember I scored a goal in the first period, and I came to the bench and almost cried.
for a lot of these guys, it was their first kind of situation with death. And I'm including grandparents. These are young kids. And Keenan tried to kind of gather the troops and kind of pull them through this, and he did as good a job as he can. But this was a brother just taken away from them. And though they, you know, they played through, if you will, it wasn't the same. That whole year was the year Pelle Lindbergh was killed.
After the trauma of the '86 season, Philadelphia was looking for a new start the following year. The re-energizing force the Flyers craved was found in a dynamic young goalie named Ron Hextall.
Nobody'd ever seen anybody like Hextall before. And we'd had guys that could carry the puck. I mean, Jockman could handle the puck, Cheevers could handle the puck, but nobody could fire the puck.
Hexy was an intense guy. I don't know, he burned up a lot of energy before the game even started.
He almost scared you watching him because he would rock back and forth in his stall, and he was mentally so focused on the game.
Hextall's aggressive attitude harkened back to Flyers of old.
But Chevrier is just getting murdered by Philadelphia's Hextall.
He wasn't just physically tough, but mentally tough, refusing to bow to any opponent.
Gretzky had a big-time chance late in the game, and Hextall stoned him, and Gretzky looked at him and said, "Who the hell are you?" And Hextall shot right back, "Who the hell are you?"
Shot, save by Philadelphia's Hextall. Olczyk in, pass, oh, and Hextall stopped it.
He was just raw emotion in goal. You didn't see that previous here. And people loved him. They just loved him.
With Hextall's contagious fire fueling them, the Flyers were once again a force to be reckoned with. Philadelphia steamrolled through the regular season and captured another Patrick Division title.
To Brown, score! Beautiful! Great outlet pass by Ron Hextall.
He played so well that whole first year for our Flyers club that he gave everybody a lift.
With the Flyers once again hit hard by injuries, Hextall carried them through the first two rounds of the playoffs and into the conference finals against the defending Stanley Cup champion Montreal Canadiens. After 5 tough physical games, the Flyers clung to a 3-2 series lead.
What an effort by Eklund!
Tension between the clubs was extremely high, and as they headed back to Montreal for Game 6, the atmosphere became ominous.
And welcome, we are live at the Forum. Ron McLean with Don Cherry. We await Game 6 of this Prince of Wales Championship Series, and we might wait a while. We've had an enormous development in the last 20 minutes. Here at center ice and in behind the goals, you know there's a ritual concerning pregame superstitions, and it erupted into a mess, quite frankly.
They had this thing going on with Corson and Lemieux, with this superstitious thing, where after the other team went off the ice after the warm-up, they would go and they shoot the pucks in the net. Well, we were sitting in the dressing room, and Eddie Hospital said before the game, we're going to put a stop to that.
Here it is now, John, you maybe...
Here it is, there's Corson put it in. It looks like Hospodar grabs him, and now they got Lemieux. They hate Lemieux over here.
And Eddie Hospital, he grabbed Lemieux and they started fighting.
There he goes, and he puts him down, and he gives him a couple of shots there.
I just remember distinctly, I remember our trainer running in and saying, there's a fight on the ice, there's a fight on the ice. And we all, you know, half the guys had half their gear off already.
And I remember Keenan jumping in front of us saying, no, we can't go out there. And I said, well, we can do it. We can do it now or we can do it later. He says, okay, let's go.
Now there they go. There's really a dandy here coming up right now.
Both teams flew after warm-up out onto the ice, and guys were grabbing each other. And Dave Brown was doing a good job of beating up a couple of the Montreal players.
And guys are half dressed, half equipped, and half, they got, you know, practically different forms of uniform on, and they're fighting before the game. It was absolutely unbelievable.
I mean, guys had guys all over the place.
There was fights everywhere. It's old-time hockey, I guess.
Fueled by the pregame emotions, the Flyers battled back from an early deficit. Then Ron Hextall kept them alive long enough for the offense to put the series away.
Crockett coming in. Here's Crockett. Crockett scores! It's over, and the Flyers go on to the Stanley Cup.
The feeling to beat Montreal and just to get to that point of the final two was an incredible feeling.
The Flyers' euphoria would not last long. As they turned their eyes to the finals, they would come face to face with a very familiar, very powerful foe.
We saw these guys 2 years ago, this Gretzky and Curry, and here they come again, but they're 2 years better. Now what?
As many expected, the mighty Oilers, at the peak of their powers, swarmed the Flyers and took 3 of the first 4 contests.
Unless the Flyers come up with a big game on Tuesday night, it may be the last minute of the Spectrum season.
And we were down 3-1. We went up there, and boy, I remember we picked up the paper, and they had the parade set for the next day. And that was a pretty good motivator for a hockey club.
I think at that time, Edmonton's maybe a little overconfident, and I thought we were just a bunch of, grinders and stuff like that. But we hadn't quit, and, we were going to go after them.
Despite the Flyers' intentions early in Game 5, it appeared as if the Oilers would have their championship parade.
And it's going to be difficult to come back against him.
But the Flyers would not quit. They came back to tie the score, and in the third, Rick Tocchet put home the game winner.
Steele behind the net in front. Tocchet scores!
Back in Philly for Game 6, the Flyers, battered and bruised, again fell behind. But as they had done so many times, Philadelphia battled back. Late in the third period, defenseman J.J. Daigneault took his place in Flyer history.
The Oilers to the point. Daigneault is out. Boy, I'll tell you, these people are going crazy.
That place rocked for about 10 minutes straight, and it felt like it could cave in.
I've never heard the Spectrum so loud in my life. Paint chips started falling off the ceiling.
I played a lot of games in Spectrum, but I think that building had never been that loud, either before or after that.
I really had a feeling after Game 6 that we were going to win, because we just kept coming back, and we seemed to have that character and that resiliency. We just wouldn't die. I mean, they had to be getting on their plane after that game, going back to Edmonton, feeling like these guys just won't go away.
Although they were confident, the Flyers were physically and mentally exhausted. For 2 periods, they went toe-to-toe with the Oilers. Ron Hextall was magnificent, stopping what seemed to be a never-ending barrage of shots.
Hextall's been strong for the Flyers tonight.
Hexy just stood on his head, and like I say, he almost won a Stanley Cup all by himself.
But then they just started to come at us in waves. They got their first one, and they got one more, and then it wasn't until about 4 or 5 minutes left that Glenn Anderson scored to make it 3-1 that kind of dimmed our hopes for the Cup.
And ladies and gentlemen, the Edmonton Oilers have won the 1987 Stanley Cup.
I thought we were going to win that game, the final game. After that game, it was like getting kicked in the gut 20 times. And I still relive that game. I think, man, if we'd have won that game.
I saw a lot of full-grown men, tough hockey players, crying their eyes out because we lost the Stanley Cup Finals. And when I look back on it, I know why they were crying, because they thought maybe that was the only chance they had to get to the finals.
In a bittersweet tribute to his legendary performance, Ron Hextall was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy.
I remember sitting in the locker room there, and I don't know how many guys were crying, but there was a lot. And then all of a sudden, Mike Keenan comes in and says, you won the Conn Smythe, you got to go out and accept it. And it meant nothing to me. It was so much more about our hockey club.
The Philadelphia Flyers of the 1980s, a team of triumphs and tragedies, a team that will live forever in the hearts of their fans.
Those who have seen this series will say you should have seen the one in '87 with the Oilers and the Flyers.
That team, they never won a cup, but they remain a very special team. They didn't win it all, which is usually how everything's measured by in Philadelphia. There's no rings, but boy, that team tried their backside off every night, and that's sort of the measuring stick now. Give me the effort that those teams in the 80s gave me. Give me the electricity that those teams gave me. Make it so that I want to go down to that place and I'm going to be on the edge of my seat, because I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen.
It's intercepted by Gallant in front, redirected, Yzerman scores! Well, the Flyers really look down and out right now.
When the Flyers bottomed out in the early 90s, their first step back up was the trade they made when Eric Lindros came along.
The trade for Lindros, that's obviously probably one of the biggest ones in the history, him and Wayne.
He came in here with an awful lot of fanfare, an awful lot of pressure. And in his early years, he lived up to all that.
He's one of the great talents to ever play for that team. Just the stuff he could do. It was just amazing, the strength he had, the physical powers on the ice.
Oh! He was the first building block of the Flyers as they arose again in the 90s.
Prior to the 1995 season, former defenseman Terry Murray returned to the Flyers as head coach and immediately focused on restoring the team's playoff pride.
There was urgency for the Flyers to make the playoffs after 5 years of missing the playoffs. And when we got those first 10 games of the season underway and things weren't going the way we wanted, Clarkie made a great trade with Montreal. And we ended up getting John LeClair and Eric Desjardins.
Instantaneously after the trade happened, and they went from pretender to contender, almost like a switch was flipped.
Over the line, look at that, LeClair right on in, shoots, I score!
Johnny LeClair wasn't a big scorer when he came. He had potential, but you didn't know that he was like this volcano about to erupt.
John LeClair, welcome to Philadelphia. The fans love you already.
Feeding off their new teammates' energy, the Flyers regained the swagger of years past.
Hey, this is like the old Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, this is the Broad Street Bullies we got back. Since the trade, the Flyers have been dynamite.
It wouldn't take long for number 10 to elevate his game and help form one of the most dynamic scoring lines in history, with one of history's most memorable nicknames.
Shouldn't call them the Legion of Doom. You should call them the Eclipse. You can't see the sun in front of you.
Folks, you're looking at the best line in hockey right now. This is the top line in the sport.
If that was your job that night, to cover those guys, you knew at the end of the night you were going to be completely exhausted.
Scary sometimes to play against those guys because they were physical.
They were big, they were strong, they were fast.
They could go around you, but they could go through you and over you too.
It was just a scary line to be playing against.
Lindros steamrolling people, LeClair knocking people out of the way to score goals.
Renberg, with his speed and quickness down the wing, boy, he was an explosive player.
Ahead for Renberg on the breakaway. Renberg scores!
That line just gelled well together.
I gave them the puck and it would make things happen.
Led by the Legion, Philadelphia returned to glory and dramatically closed out the regular season against their newest rival.
The Devils had been kind of a nemesis. They were emerging nemesis.
John LeClaire trying to tuck a pass in front. Renberg battling for it. On the puck, score! It is in, and Philadelphia has won in overtime.
They won it. They were champs, and it seemed like just a couple months earlier that they were looking like a team that might be really headed for a long, long drought, but it turned around that quickly.
I made the playoff my first year, and it was a great feeling.
In the playoffs, they played the Sabres and then blew the Rangers out.
Flyer team has come a long way under Bobby Clark in a real hurry, haven't they? Boy, did they ever turn around their season.
The Flyers dethroned the Rangers when they were Stanley Cup champions in a startling sweep.
The Devils would get their revenge in the Eastern Conference Finals, putting an end to Philadelphia's storybook season.
And a terrific run for the Flyers. We came close to really doing a lot of good things in that first year.
That summer at the NHL Awards, League MVP Eric Lindros issued a heartfelt statement to the Flyers faithful.
Thank you to the fans of Philadelphia who've supported us. So good. We're getting better, and we're going to do it.
Just 2 years later, the Flyers would embark on yet another successful playoff run.
Here's a rebound.
The Flyer fans celebrate.
It takes 4 rounds. The Flyers are going to get to the 4th round.
Congratulations to Terry Murray, the Philadelphia Flyers and their fans. This is one heck of a hockey club that's going to represent the East.
All of Philadelphia believed this was the year the Flyers would bring Lord Stanley home. Standing in their way would be the Western Conference champion, Detroit Red Wings.
Most everyone I talked to felt the Flyers were going to win that series.
I thought, boy, the way this hockey club's playing right now, Detroit can't play, just can't play it.
And you got there, and it took about 2 periods to say, whoa, that's something special over there.
We let a couple of bad goals in the first 2 games at home, and then we just never really got it going.
The Red Wings have taken the Flyers' game plan and ripped it up.
They beat us 4 straight, they dominated us, and we really weren't in the series right from the start.
The 1997 Detroit Red Wings are Stanley Cup champions.
As it turned out, the Red Wings were a very good team that I think a lot of people underestimated. The Flyers, this was supposed to be their moment, but the Red Wings got in the way.
The '97 Cup run was the apex for the Legion of Doom, and although the team never made it back to the finals, the Flyers still provided their fans with some memorable moments.
We're throwing everything we have at the Pittsburgh Penguins. Both teams are battling back and forth.
We got into overtime, and our locker room was full of characters at that time. Rick Tocchet, Keith Jones, Craig Berube, guys who really knew how to keep a locker room on an even keel. And as the period started to go by, the overtime period started to go by, it just became more humorous as we went along.
Put on another pot of coffee. This game could be on ESPN Classic before it's over.
After a while, you don't even know what time it is. You don't know how many periods you've played.
It just went on and on and on, and it's like Groundhog Day. It was the same thing at both ends of the ice.
By the 3rd overtime period, we were running out of Powerade, we were running out of power bars. Guys wanted to order pizza.
They delivered pizza.
Ate a lot of pizza.
We're eating pizza to try to keep our energy up.
What you do remember is there's more pizza waiting for you to eat.
Gary Dornoff was actually eating some pizza, and all of a sudden our producer says, "You guys are on." We turn around, and I'm talking, and I look over, and I see there's actually some pizza here.
Some guys had their blow dryer going on their skates.
Guys getting intravenous put in, getting fluids back in their body.
We're looking for popcorn, whatever we could get our hands on to eat.
There was a lot of great stories. I mean, Keith Jones was hilarious on the bench.
I can remember actually going on for a shift, standing at center ice right in front of our bench and looking one way, looking the other way, and saying, change.
He jumped back on the bench and told Craig Ramsey, the coach, don't put me out there again, I'm done.
Who's going to be the hero tonight in Pittsburgh?
2 other times earlier in the game, I'd gone wide on Darius Kasparaitis, only to be cut off at the net or cut off behind the net. So I faked like I was going to go outside on him again, and as he crossed his feet over, I was able to pull the puck back on my forehand and get a shot off.
Primo moves deep with it, stops, the shot, it's good! It's good! Pete Primo is able to win it, and the Flyers win the test of will!
I think Ron Tugnutt was just as tired because the shot, although it looks great, it probably hit the middle bar in the net, and it was a great feeling. It was exhilarating, and our guys were just excited it was over.
Oh, I remember Sammy Kapanen getting hit so hard by Darcy Tucker, he was dazed.
Kapanen was out cold on his feet.
He was up, but he was skating back towards the middle of the ice.
He doesn't know where he is. He's staggering toward the middle of the ice.
I was able to get my stick out and kind of direct him to the bench.
And the Flyers, in the meantime, are in their own zone and they're pinned in. And it's a shooting gallery around the Flyer net, and it looks like Toronto's going to win the game.
But then all of a sudden, Jeremy Roenick picks up the puck, goes down the wing.
Look out here, 2-on-1, Roenick, Roenick shoots, he scores! Jeremy Roenick has propelled the Flyers to the Eastern Conference Finals!
And they would advance to battle the Tampa Bay Lightning. Game 6 would provide another unforgettable moment.
2 minutes left to go in the third period. Tampa Bay leading at 4-3. Primo got it away to Commander. A shot. Score! Primo! Score! Primo has tied the game!
The tying goal was more fluke than anything, kicking it with my skate over to the other side of the net.
Keith Primo has dramatically tied this game.
You know, it's hard to believe there's 40 years involved here, but I'll say this, 40 years of a great organization.
Primo draws it, side of the net, Roenick shot. Let's go! Simon Gardner! We've got game 7!
For me, it's my life. To be known as a Flyer is an honor. It really is a privilege.
To me, it is tradition, winning, pride, all the things it takes, character.
If I had a choice, there would be no other place in the world I'd play except for the Flyers. I have played with other clubs. You know, I played with Boston, Oakland, Detroit. And I know I don't even mention them. They always say, "Who did you play with?" I said, "Philadelphia Flyers."
Loyalty, commitment, dedication. Rare words today. Rarer still when applied to a sports franchise. But then again, for 40 years, the Philadelphia Flyers have always been more than simply a hockey team.
The Flyers are a family. You know, starting right from the very beginning when Ed put those original teams together. And, you know, Ed Snyder has been here right from the beginning. You just don't see that in sports. And he set the tone.
He loved his players. He would do anything he could for them. And to this day, he's still doing the same thing.
And another look at Ed Snyder. 4 decades, he's been putting his heart and soul into this franchise.
I'll never forget when I first turned pro. I wanted to settle in Philadelphia. I made it that I wanted to be there, and Mr. Snyder helped me personally to purchase a house, even though I couldn't quite afford it at that time, that we could make it work a little bit later on, and I've never forgotten that.
The way that they make you feel is that you're still a part of the team. The day I retired with 2 years left of my contract because of knee injury. Ed Snyder's the guy on the phone to me the next day after the doctors make it official, not to bitch and complain about me retiring early on my career, but to wish me well and offer any help or assistance I need in getting on with my life after hockey. Those are the kind of things that, to me, separate the Philadelphia Flyers from everybody else.
I worked a few years in Minnesota and a year in Florida and always come back, and because of Mr. Snyder, the people that worked here, the players were always treated special, and it was always team.
For today's team, the goal remains the same. The same as it has since Ed Snyder and the Flyers lived the glory days of the mid-1970s.
Ed, we got word that everyone's out in the street in Philadelphia, that horns are blaring. It's like New Year's Eve, VJ Day, VE Day, and last year's celebration all rolled into one. Guess what? I can't wait to join it.
Just to win a Stanley Cup would be nice, and then Philadelphia haven't won a championship in a while, and it'd be nice to give them something that they deserve.
That would definitely be nice. Obviously, our ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup, and to build on that for years to come. And I think we got some good group of guys here, and hopefully we can build some here.
And Coach, you can't tell me that to a man who thought of another parade down Broad Street hasn't crossed the mind of each and every player in that dressing room.
That would be unbelievable, win a Stanley Cup here. I think you'd be remembered your rest of your life here in Philadelphia. They'll just love you. It's what they're dying for right now.
I spent a long time in the American League, and I was fortunate enough to win down there 4 times. And when you can do it better than anybody else, it is the ultimate. And I know it's the American League. To have a chance at the Stanley, that is our goal here. We're going to build a team that's has this bond that can get it done. And as a kid, if I could have picked a place to win, it'd be here. So that's our goal, and that's our intent. And we're not going to stop till we get it done.
From the beginning, the Flyers were really built like the town we played in. Blue collar, tough, unrepentant. But rarely have a city and a sports franchise been so closely identified with each other as Philadelphia and the Flyers were in the 1970s. As players, we were revered as heroes, and our adventures became lore. Well, the Flyers haven't captured a Stanley Cup since, but that bond with the fans and with the city, well, it's never loosened. And Philadelphia will always be a blue-collar, tough, proud city. No matter who wears the uniform, the fans will always expect the same from their team as the next 40 years of Flyers memories are created. I'm Bill Clement. Thanks for being with us.
The city of Philadelphia, to me, is the greatest sports city in North America. And I know that's a huge statement, but when I look at the Philadelphia Flyers and the way the support has been and the energy that the fans have brought to this team over the years since 1967, it's just been absolutely incredible.
There is passion in a fan, as there is in sports. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
It's a blue-collar city, and all they ask for is hard work.
That's what Philly's all about. It's gritty, it's hard-working, it's got an edge and a chip, and that's what we've been as the Flyers.
The fans love this stuff in Philadelphia. If there's a rink in the NHL that the fans appreciate this more than anyone, it's here in Philadelphia.
When things are going well, they're unbelievable, and they know their hockey. So when things are going bad, they get on your case.
Even if we didn't win, if we worked really hard and put in an effort, the people are always there behind us.
It's nice to go to a city where you can play, feel like you belong, live thereafter, have a career, and get to know a lot of people outside of hockey. This is probably going to be my home for the rest of my life.
The fans in this city are not just hockey fans. Most importantly, they are Flyer fans, and they want to see us win every night.
In Philadelphia, if you do something good, they'll never forget you, and they've never forgotten us.
This is one of the greatest hockey franchises that will ever be in the National Hockey League in my mind.
The only thing they can expect from this organization is that we'll work as hard as anybody else, any other organization, and we'll do everything humanly possible to win the cup. Tonight, hockey does itself proud. For tonight, we honor a man who has truly earned our praise, and I emphasize the word earned. Bob Clark was a great playmaker, outstanding anticipation, but most important, Bob Clark has earned this Hall of Fame award because he possessed three qualities that make men great. Bob Clark is a competitor, the best I've ever seen. Bob Clark is a leader, and men followed. Bob Clark is a worker, every game, every shift, every practice. 20 years ago, we were a struggling franchise. But then, on June 12, 1969, with the words, "The Philadelphia Flyers select Bobby Clark," all of that changed. Our franchise became a team. Bob Clark led our team in his own image, an image of hard work, an image of incredible courage, the image of a winner. If anyone wants to know what the Philadelphia Flyers are all about, go no further. Bobby Clark is what the Philadelphia Flyers are all about. In 1972, at the ripe old age of 22, Bob became the captain of the Flyers, the youngest captain in the history of the NHL at the time, and in my opinion, the best captain ever. He was the best defensive center in the NHL, but that didn't stop him from being our all-time leading scorer with over 1,200 points. But stats don't tell the real story, because stats cannot measure the size of a man's heart. Only those of us fortunate enough to have a close relationship know how great this man really is. In fact, I'd like to just digress and tell a few stories. In 1971, when the WHA and the NHL were at war, Bob came to see me at my office without an agent, I might add, and said, "I'd like to negotiate a long-term contract." We sat down, the two of us, and we negotiated that contract and shook hands on it. And I turned to him and I said, "You know, Bob, you're not making with this contract as much as many players who are nowhere near as good as you." And he said, "I know, but I want to win a Stanley Cup, and I think this might help." And I want to tell you that nothing like that has ever happened to me before or since. And the Flyers went on a few years later to win the Cup. And I think that was one of the big reasons, because we never lost a player to the WHA. And then there was the time in Chicago when Bob Verdi, the Chicago hockey writer, walked up to Bob in the locker room after a game. Bob handed him $500 and said, "Here, I read a story in your paper this afternoon about a kid who's in trouble and needs help, and we've taken up a collection, and here's $500. And Verdi was surprised and went about to thank all the players who, incidentally, had heard nothing whatsoever about any collection. I could say things like this endlessly, but I don't want to embarrass Bob because he never wanted any recognition. In 1984, Bob was asked by my son Jay to make the transition from our leader on the ice to our leader off of the ice. We needed his talents in the front office. He had all the credentials: intelligence, a leader, innovative, decisive. When Bob said yes, I knew we were in good hands. And he's proven us right, because we've been in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2 out of the 3 years since he took over as GM. And as GM, he's shown the same daring and intelligence off the ice that he always did as a player. Bob's a family man. 4 wonderful kids, a wonderful wife, Sandy, a very special woman who I've known and admired ever since she came to Philadelphia as a teenager to marry Bob. I'm very honored to have been asked to make this presentation tonight. I look at Bob as a father would a son. He's the one being honored, but I'm the lucky one because I've known him, I've watched him play, and I feel very fortunate to be able to call him my friend. Now I would like to pause for a minute to recognize two very special people. Bob's parents, Cliff and Yvonne Clark. Would you please stand? Mr. and Mrs. Clark, take a look at Bob and feel real proud because you've really given us a gem. Thank you.
I can raise them just a little bit, Mr. Ziegler. Congratulations to the other inductees, and thank you very much to the selection committee. The sacrifices that are made to have a career like mine are not made by the player, they're made by the family. And I sincerely thank my wife Sandy, my 4 children, Lucas and Wade, Jody and Jackie, and my mother and father. You allowed me to play hockey, and I thank you, and I love you very much. Special thanks to a very special man, Mr. Ed Snyder, and to my boss and my friend, his son Jay. I had the privilege of playing for a great organization, and it was because of these people. A special thanks to the other owners of the hockey club that we've had over the years. To the coaches. We've always had great coaches. Pat Quinn, Freddie Shiro, Patty Janelle when I was in junior hockey. They meant so much to me. To the great players that I played with. It wasn't luck that we were successful. We had very talented people, and they worked hard, and I was fortunate to play with them. And to 2 very special men, very special to me, very special to our organization, Keith Allen and Jerry Melnick. They did so much for me, I can never thank them enough. For 15 years, I had the honor and the privilege of playing with the greatest athletes in the greatest league in the world. I had an opportunity to live my dream. And for all of us who have responsible positions in hockey now, it is up to us to keep this game strong the way it is, so that kids who love hockey like I do will always have the opportunity to play it at this high a level. Thank you.
The Philadelphia Flyers are usually a veteran-laden team, but this season, the rookies were integral to their success.
First NHL goal for R.J. Umberger. Bucks it alone, and Neremaki stands tall. The Meyer for the shot, he scored. Oh, good shot.
Just every day you see they're coming and working hard.
Freddie Meyer, they score! Whoa, save!
It's great to see them, you know, they want to go out and they want to be better and they want to win the game.
Eager for everyone, he scores! R.J. Umberger, the laser! Oh, Christensen denied! saved. On the attack, Umberger shoots, scores! One-shot save, two-shot save, three-shot save, Ninemaki!
They've been bringing a lot to the team.
Mike Richards and Jeff Carter were two more first-year Flyers that made an impact this season. These two aren't just rookies who were drafted on the same day, they're roommates as well.
I haven't been over there, but I heard a lot of bad things about that house. I don't know if you want to go. Bring some gloves.
It's a good thing that you're going first. You can tell me if it's safe to go.
If you gave them 24 hours notice, God help you.
Hello. Come on in.
Welcome to our place. It's not much, but gets the job done here.
Our kitchen here, a lot of food. Doesn't get cooked that often. We're both pretty lazy. See the maid next Thursday. It might be a little messy. Recyclables that usually stays within a couple weeks there. We have PlayStation games, DVR, which I have no idea how to use. Pretty much the only pictures in our house, paintings in my hometown. Up here, we have the fish, kind of the monument in Kenora, Husky the Muskie it's called, right overlooks the lake. And then this one we have of downtown MS Kenora. And right down here in the corner is my boat that I just bought last summer. So hopefully do a lot of fishing on that.
Actually, right here we just got a little bit of laundry. You gotta do that once in a while, run out of clothes.
I had to get an email from my mom to do it, but she told me how.
Nice big comfy bed. Spent a lot of time in that thing. Jeez. A little too much probably. Get the dirty clothes in the bottom. Come on now.
Push-up blocks down in the corner there, but doesn't seem to do the push-ups too often.
A couple suits. She just picked up all my dry cleaning. Don't want to wash them myself. It's a picture of my dad right here. He's a good guy. Check that out.
Obviously, the much bigger bed won it in a coin toss. Well, we were in buying our beds, and we were deciding what rooms to get. Best of 7 coin toss. I won it in 7, so...
It was up 3-0 too.
Yeah.
Blew it right in the middle of the store.
Got my closet. I mean, it's kind of a little bit messy. Shoes make the wardrobe, but they're all over the place. Bought a new guitar about, I don't know, 3 months ago. Can't play a single thing. Our championship ring from last year, the Phantoms. Pretty proud of that. It means a lot. Jeff goes across there and plays in the park a little bit. I see him some afternoons riding the slides, the teeter-totter.
The board sitting around.
This dynamic duo also caught the attention of coaches and teammates with their on-ice skills.
These two young guys have competed at a high level for most of their lives. They know how to win, so it's a tremendous asset for the coaches and for the team.
This guy can just walk out this side and have a pretty good chance on net.
Both of them got great hockey sense. They know what they're doing on the ice.
Hey, that's going to work good there. In the game, I can step into it.
Their teammates really believe in them. They believe that every night these two young guys can make a difference.
Carter to the forehand, he scores! That was pretty.
From the first day of camp, the veteran guys have been great.
I was going to push out, but...
You guys are here.
Okay, I heard you.
You know, you come in and it's not really like your rookies and veterans. It was, you know, they were excellent. They anything you needed, they were there for you. Anything, you know, little tips and stuff like that around the room. You know, it was really good to have them.
They feel very comfortable inside the locker room here. They feel like they can be themselves. We've had team meetings, and one or both of them have spoken up at the team meeting for first-year players. To do that shows the confidence that the team has in them.
Speaking in Czech before the drill starts. Time out.
I mean, you're playing in the NHL. What more fun can that be?
A hat trick for the rookie, Mike Richards.
Just sharing the experiences, like on the road, playing against different teams every night that you get excited for, that you watched growing up as a kid.
They'll never forget this feeling, and I have a feeling he's going to get a lot more. What an incredible hockey player.
When you get to play with Peter Forsberg every day and, you know, shoot against goalies like Ninemaki and Ash.
I haven't scored a goal yesterday either. Oh, I scored one on Eshy. You see that? Right there. Oh, yeah. Cheddar.
The day-to-day life is just so much fun that, you know, people don't really understand. Like, the hockey part's fun, but just going to the rink every day is just that much more exciting.
Watch Jagger protect it?
Yeah.
Now he has two hands. Yeah, and that's why we came up.
He's a little bit bigger than me, though.
That's what we're saying.
He's 6'4", I'm 5'10".
We have such a great group of guys that there's always some laughs going on and joking around, so it's been good.
Every NHL season has its highs and lows, but when things got tough, these two could always lean on each other.
I think the big thing is understanding young players hit the wall, and they need support, and they've had support from each other.
Getting better, getting better.
Definitely makes them stronger, and I mean, they can talk about things when things are not going the way they want.
I think maybe it's a little easier for them, not too much pressure, you know, you can fall back on the other guy a little bit.
Like a sponge, just all soaking in right now.
So I think it's good for them that they two of them at the same time.
Yeah, we have some fun. Two 20-year-olds living in a big city. Can't go wrong.
It's not bad.
Welcome to Utica, New York, home of Robert Esch, Philadelphia Flyer goaltender, and his Save of the Day Foundation. Robert and fellow NHL players took the field in the inaugural softball game against the Utica Fire Department for a great cause.
Time to play ball.
Kevin, what is this weekend about?
It's about raising money for sick kids, terminally ill children, and their families, as far as helping them out with finances. He's really a hometown guy. He wants to make sure that all the money we raise stays in the Mohawk Valley, and in essence, that's what it's about.
Led by Esch, his team lit up the scoreboard and left the firemen in the dust.
I'm done for the day.
When a fellow tender asks you to come out to his little event in Utica, New York, why do you say yes?
Well, it's a great cause, obviously, and you know, Chico and I had a great relationship together in Phoenix. He's a real fun guy, always doing what he can for the community, and anytime you can help a guy like that, it's a lot of fun. Plus, we have a great time there. There's a lot of guys we play against all year that we compete every night with, and today we can have some fun with each other.
Oh, Berkey! That's why he's the #1 goalie, just like that.
It's a charity game.
That's right.
What was that?
That was dynamite, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable. After a decisive 16-5 victory over the Firemen, it concluded day one in fine fashion. Day two of Robert Esch's Save of the Day Foundation teed off at a local golf course.
All right, you won softball yesterday. Do you have to win today?
Yeah, we have to win. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. I've been holding this golf out for a few years now. We haven't won yet, and we cheat the whole time.
We can't cheat though to start the first hole. Hey, what's the tactics out here? You got your bullhorn.
Yeah, we got
which is always fun.
Yeah, we always got the blowhorn.
When you come out here and you look at the first tee and you say, "My God, it's actually my name."
Oh, I know.
This is
amazing. I am a very realistic person, but you know, if they're coming for you, you know, that's the weird part that's tough to understand, especially with my personality. I really don't. I don't see how they come see me. Last time I seen legs like that, they're hanging out of a bird cage, Berkey. Every year it seems to work out.
One more thing that's important to you, obviously, the fact that everything we do and this weekend, you guys keep here for the Mohawk Valley.
Whenever you're helping out a terminally ill kid, it doesn't matter where the money goes. It doesn't matter if it goes from here to Flin Flon. You know, like, it does not matter. But when you're actually keeping the money locally because they don't really have a foundation, then to me, I think that's a big plus.
All right, serious parts aside, who should we put this camera in front of to really mess up today?
Well, obviously, Rexy. Well, I don't know if you'll see him. You're going to have to get down to his level on your video camera. You don't want to just shoot over the top of him, so you may have to bend down to get him.
This is in the same class as Hogan, Nicholas, Woods, Esch. There it is.
Okay, this is Robert Esch's golf bag. He has actually quite an up-to-date driver, which is surprising. He has this thing that I think Ben Hogan actually hit. Ben Hogan hit this. Now he goes 3-iron, 7-iron, 9-iron, sand wedge. Somehow he has 2 putters. Don't be afraid to trade in a putter for a couple woods. Can you believe that bag? Not one golf ball will be found anywhere. And we're supposed to win this tournament.
Stay right there. Meanwhile, I got to take a couple of swings with Danielle Briere.
Nice. Might have to keep you.
I got mine.
All right. If you want to put any of my bad shots on, you better put this one on.
However, if you put that in, you put my drive in too.
We might have our first birdie with you.
Bingo.
Nice. Danny, you're not going anywhere.
Unfortunately, my good luck was needed elsewhere, so I caught up with Chris McAllister.
Come on, Chris! Oh, you guys are good luck for me. Got to stay with me the rest of the time now.
No cheating even going on yet. When it does become necessary, I'm the guy to have on the scorecard when you need to cheat.
Judging by Sean's performance, they didn't need to cheat.
Oh, we got it here, boys. Don't worry. It's in. Good as in.
Oh, Berkey!
Oh my God. Oh my God.
3 for 3.
Oh, Berkey! Woo! No, Berkey! Holy Berkey!
You are outstanding. You're one of the best I've ever seen.
We're gonna have more beeps than the Ozzy Osbourne show.
If this goes in, there'll be some excitement here tonight, boys.
Go ahead, Berkey.
Unbelievable.
It's not a hard game. Hockey's hard. That's an easy game.
Even easier than sinking a long putt or hitting a home run was raising $50,000 for the foundation. A live auction and raffle gave fans and friends something to take home with them, and sick children in the Mohawk Valley something more important: hope.
Thanks for letting us be here.
Oh, thank you. Are you kidding me? You guys coming in here made everything worthwhile. You guys are really what topped everything off, and we appreciate that. Thank you, sir. You're the best.
Three years ago, I had the chance of a lifetime and got to play in a preseason game with the Minnesota Wild. Now I have another chance, not to play, but to coach in a preseason game with the Philadelphia Flyers.
It's a spectrum. This is kind of cool.
But before I got behind the bench to coach against the Flyers' AHL affiliate, I thought it'd be a good idea to get some encouragement and advice.
What should I do? Besides yelling, Coach, what's next?
Well, I think the major thing is to if you just shut up and don't say too much, they'll change themselves.
Pretty much everybody's just here to have a good time and, play as hard as we can for you. You know, Bobby, with me behind the bench, this organization may never be the same. That could be maybe good or maybe bad.
We change coaches a lot around here, you know. You could be first in line.
Okay, well, I'll take it as an audition. It's not often that I speak to the opposing coach before a game. If we don't win tonight, am I allowed back in Philadelphia, Coach?
No.
Well, you can tell your boys to be ready, because our guys will be ready. You can tell them not to take these guys for granted, because these guys are going to go out tonight and prove something to everybody who's watching.
Thankfully, it wasn't all up to me. NHL hockey reporter Al Morganti was also coaching the Flyers.
Oh, yeah. Out there. Yeah, I agree. Now let's see if they're going to listen to me when I tell them who's playing with who. If we lose, we're all screwed. I know it's for fun, it's good for the fans, have a good time, but don't let these guys take us.
It's a chance to really do a good job against a team that's obviously a huge challenge for everybody, but the step from here to there isn't as great as it may seem right now.
These are the jerseys that they want to wear, and maybe someday they will, but let's not have it happen tonight, okay, guys?
Make an impression, go out there and lay it all out there, boys.
Let's go. Come on.
Yes, I'm wearing helmet.
Here we go, here we go. All right, boys.
See, the important thing is that paper this size so it fits right in your pocket. Every coach needs that.
That's what we don't want right there.
Summit springing Gagne, and Angola scores!
That's all right, boys. That's nothing.
Vandermeer and Janssen next. That was done with authority, huh? Do you guys want to go? Okay, go.
That's a hell of a pass. I wouldn't recommend it, but I like it. That's the way to work, baby. That's the way to work, boys. That feels good, though, eh, boys? Perfect.
Being outshot 2-1. It's not a good thing.
Go to work, boys. Here's an hit. Bang! Yeah! That's it, baby!
I need you to tell me what to do. Don't move. I need you here to run the team.
This is where we get in trouble at the end of these shifts, boys.
Somik, drop pass, Schwinner, wrist shot, score!
What's wrong, Tony?
Shift to the lines. I don't know what the hell you're doing back there.
Yes.
There we go, boys. That's not bad. I expect better next. Let's go.
We're going 4-on-4 in the third period.
They're going to try to make plays. They're going to try to make pretty plays. And I think we can use that to our advantage. So you're on your own now. I'm done.
Everything all right down there? It's easy. I got 6 guys. It's no problem. Bring 97's a forward. How are you sitting here hanging out with us, though?
Keep rolling them here, boys. It's a lot more fun. There's no penalties. Let's just play, baby.
They're listening to me.
That's it, boys. That's effort. I like this kid. Yeah, that's awesome. Boys.
There you go. That sound good?
Change! Murph! Murph! That's coaching! That's coaching, baby!
There goes the Jack Adams.
All the game, kids. Way to work, fellas. That was great.
Coaching debut, a 10-6 defeat at the hands of the Phantoms. Now, if I was the real coach, I'd go in and talk to them about some of the mistakes. But I'm not the real coach, so gladly, I'm not going in.
What?
have everything in the lower place. And
this past summer, Rick Tocchet and the Philadelphia Flyers took to the field to take a swing in the fight against cancer.
Hey, watch your Sam. I'm mic'd up here.
And of course, Dan was on hand to help out.
Ow! You know, he gave him a really easy pitch to hit. That's what it was. Ooh. Ow!
That hurt. That hurt there. Oh, yeah. I did the old Checkmanic, man.
Great save, Checkmanic! So how are Dan's softball skills, you ask?
They used to call me the natural. My parents did that.
Come on, swing the bat.
Like my number? That can't mean good things, can it? The coach says to me, I think I'm going to put you in center field because you look athletic. Excuse me? Come on, swing. That was embarrassing. Boucher put over my head. Unbelievable, huh? 3 errors. I wonder if one of those happens to be mine.
13-2. I think about 6 runs were directly from him. Hopefully next year we can have a better appearance for us.
Also on hand was cancer survivor Paul Stewart to lend his support.
A referee. That's right. But you're on a baseball diamond.
Yes.
when they asked you to do this, first reaction?
Jumped at it. Fantastic. Hockey fights cancer is not only just for officials and players, it's for the fans, and certainly the Hart family and all of the folks here in Philadelphia who have been afflicted and seen the Flyer hockey family take its punches and lumps from cancer. Well, if I can't come down and help, then I'm not a very good guy.
You mentioned Hockey Fights Cancer and how it was great for you to be here to get to also to talk to the fans, the growth of it. How's it been? Because you're at the forefront, Paul.
Well, I think that in some ways I have this mission now that people can see me and they say, if that guy can survive what he went through, I can do it too. And I tell people every day that I wake up is a gift. So I think that's the only way we can carry on.
Paul, I can't ask any more questions after that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to everybody that supports Hockey Fights Cancer, because I'll tell you what, together we can beat this guy.
We're going to show you goalie cam today. Robert Ash will be wearing it. It is brand new technology, and I'm just going to bet you're going to like it.
You guys are putting the pressure on me to have a good practice.
Hey, I got a microphone and camera on. That's just another big save. Don't worry about it. Your nose looks bigger in this. It does nothing for Sharpie, though. The camera doesn't do anything for Sharpie. For you, it helps you out, but...
See how I look. Do you remember some of the old technology that the goalies tried to wear?
Yeah, I think it was Hasek in an All-Star game, and Van Beesbrook had the one on there for a while.
But not like this, right? This is batteries, transmitter, a little bit of the camera here, and then the lens is here. I mean, it's so small, I didn't even notice it the first time I said, where is it? I looked at the mask, where is it? There's no camera there. So do you even know when you have this thing on?
No, I had it on this morning. It felt great. There's nothing, you know, no change. I mean, obviously it adds a little bit of weight, but it's so insignificant that, you know, I actually thought it felt good.
Over, over, over! Move it, move it! Lucky shot. I don't think we want to give up that shot.
Me personally, I'm excited because now people can see my frustration on the ice.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute, though. They're also going to see when you're not screened, when you might say, yeah, you know, I was screened.
That's fine. I don't mind that. But, no, I'm excited for it because I think it's going to bring another element to the game. Moving forward in the future of hockey, I think it's great.
Go, go, go. 1 on, 2 on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Hit him. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Go, go, go. Oh, that's a big save. You guys get that one? That's just a good play.
And when people are crashing the net, I'm assuming that this is just going to show us the mayhem that you feel.
Hi, I'm Keith Primo of the Philadelphia Flyers, along with my teammate Peter White. Today we're going to go over strategies for winning face-offs. The best techniques for me, I've always been taught 100% of the time to draw the puck backwards. That way you go into the face-off with no hesitation, no doubt as to where you're going to put the puck. Everybody on your team knows exactly where the puck is going, where it's coming to. It gives us an opportunity to have puck control.
For us, we have a little scouting report, so we know what the other guy's doing, and I try and read off the other guy. For a taller player, my key is to try and get it underneath them. That way I'm a little stronger on the puck. If he's standing up, he can't use as much leverage on me. Sometimes if he's trying to hit my stick, I'll lift up my stick and try and win the puck, or turn my feet around and kick it back to the D. But the key is always try and win it back, not try and go to head with the puck.
Keith Primo has won 19 of the first 27 face-offs he's taken today, and has been the dominant face-off man for either team.
In this instant, we'll pretend it's the opening face-off for the game. So my intention is to draw the puck back here. I think Peter's got the advantage because he's a left-hand shot with a referee on this side of him. So I've got to try and get as low as I can against a shorter player to get, like he said, some advantage back as far as leverage goes.
As you notice, the puck was a tie-up, and we're both trying to kick it with our skates, which happens a lot in the NHL. A lot of times, the wingers can't come in and help you, so you've got to try and win it with your feet.
Good face-off. What an all-star face-off that is.
Try it again, and this time I'm going to try and draw the puck the other way. Again, I've got my hand turned over. I feel I get better strength that way. I got more power, but I'm still going to try and lock up Peter and bring the puck back on my forehand. One more pointer before we conclude is as you come into the face-off, peripheral vision tells me where Peter's stick is. You should always keep your eye on the puck, so when the puck is coming in out of the referee or linesman hand, you know where it's coming to.
Face-off genius. He won that one cleanly.
When you're growing up, you dream of it.
Martrecki will get his hands on it next.
I remember Kevin handed me the cup, and I remembered how heavy it was. I'm either getting really weak or this thing's heavy. And, you know, it was just like, you can't believe you've got it in your hands. I chose to stay in Philadelphia because I believe every year they're going to at least have the opportunity to make a good run at it. And when you're on the ice, you're doing what it takes to help your teammates out and to accomplish that goal.
As a kid growing up, you always dreamed of playing professional hockey. The best part of it is being able to come to the rink every day and extend your childhood. Sometimes you got to pinch yourself playing in front of 15 to 20,000 fans. It's a great thrill. I think it's a tremendous sport. The puck moves fast, the players move extremely fast, and that's part of the excitement of the game. To me, I hope the fans really appreciate that I love playing this game. I like to go out and play as hard as I can every night, and I have a great time doing it.
There's not enough room, and it needs to be higher. No. You start low, and you work higher. Jeremy, check this out. You're going to start here at the hash mark, right? You're going to help out defensively if needed, but you're looking for your breakout. By the time you reach the neutral zone, you're at full speed.
He's flying. Oh, Korea! Jaromir Jagr! Jeremy Roenick! What a spectacular play!
Can we please talk about the kitchen cabinets?
Yeah, in a minute. What about the penalty killing? Oh, yeah, you got to pressure the point man.
You have no right to something that is meant for me. So if you push me, I will push back. If you knock me down, I will get up and you will face the wrath of hell. Confucius once said, when anger arises, think of the consequences. So don't make me angry, because you won't like it when I'm angry. This is my Stanley Cup.
Honey, what's Peter Forsberg doing in our bed?
Oh, he's just here to remind you that the season started. Hey, Peter, can you get the light?
Sure. Honey, what's Peter Forsberg doing in our bed?
He's just here to remind you there's a game on NBC. Hey, Peter, can you get the light?
Sure.
The NHL has been filled with moments that turn players into legends.
Behind the net, the Sanderson, on the oar!
And bring the sports world to a standstill. With the NHL's Greatest Moments DVD, hockey fans of all ages can enjoy these unforgettable feats and hear from the game's greatest to ever play. Available wherever DVDs are sold or shop NHL.com. In 40 years, the Philadelphia Flyers have had fantastic finishes. Heart-pounding moments. And have been on top of the hockey world. Now you can watch it happen all over again with the Flyers' 10 Greatest Games DVD box set. The original broadcast of their fiercest battles available wherever DVDs are sold or shop NHL.com.
We had a contest to name the team, and you know, people submitted all kinds of names. And I was driving with my sister one day, who had come to visit me in Philadelphia. She lives in Washington, D.C., and she said, well, it should be the Philadelphia Flyers. And instantaneously, it just made sense. And that's what we named the team. And the way the contest worked was that we didn't have to pick the name with the most votes, but whatever name we picked, we would put all of the people that picked that into a hat and pick a winner, which we actually did. And there was a winner of naming the team. It wasn't my sister, but that's how it clicked.
I wasn't smart enough to have a little radio there so I could plug in my own husband, and I didn't want to be like, you know, that's my husband, and this is a big deal. So I just watched the game and watched them win the cup. And I'm watching him from my seat. And he's in that press box, and it was low in those years. Later it got upstairs. But I looked over, and after he called, I wondered what he was saying. And then I saw him stand up with that Cheshire grin on his face and light the biggest cigar. And that was a great moment. He was just so thrilled. So that was one of the great moments. But there were many, many great moments. For instance, when he got the job, and he had been down doing a college football game in Maryland or something, and this fellow who was doing the broadcast on was it radio back then or TV? I forget. I guess it was just radio. Radio, yeah. He'd been calling, so when Gene got home, I waited up, and it was late at night, and I said, Gene, Stu Nahan has been calling you. You're supposed to wait, and get in the house and get his call when it comes in. And he didn't seem too excited. So then when he came in, he finally got the call, and Stu said, have you heard? We got the contract for the games. He said, aren't you excited? Stu said to Gene. And Gene said, and I'm standing right next to the phone listening, and he said, should I be? He said, yeah, because you're going to broadcast. And Gene covered the phone up. I remember this. And I was at his elbow, and he said, I'm a star.
Well, let me go back a little bit in that series. You know, we won the first 3 games. In the 4th game, I let a slap shot go against Bernie, and he kind of bent down, and the puck hit him just below the kneecap or above the kneecap, but he was not able to play. So for the next 3 games, Bernie Perrant was not in the net. And the Islanders, they won the next 3 games without Perrant there. And I think everybody was ready to send me to Siberia for putting him out of action. But Bernie did return, you know, for that 7th game. And, you know, over the years there, Kate Smith was the good luck charm. It just seemed that when they played her song or she was singing, we had a tremendous record, and so it was very fitting that in that 7th game, Kate Smith would make an appearance. They had the grand piano out there. She sang "God Bless America." Eddie Westfall, who was the team captain for the Islander, presented her with the roses after she finished her song and let the game begin. And we were fortunate to come on top.
Yeah, the Vancouver incident was, I was really a victim in that deal. They called it the Vancouver 7, and there were 7 of us that were arrested for going into the fans and for fighting with the fans. And the way that started was that I was in a fight with a guy on the ice, and a fan reached over and grabbed me by the hair and started almost lifting me off the ice. And when that happened, it just happened to be right beside our bench. So all of the guys from our bench unloaded into the stands and went after this guy, and it erupted into a pretty significant brawl. I still say I was a victim because I never left. I never jumped into the stands. I stayed on the ice, and all I did was get my hair pulled, and I got thrown into it with the rest of them. So I blame the other guys on the team for that brawl. That wasn't even me. I was just happened to be there.
When Mike Keenan took over, the Flyers also previously had made one of the bigger trades since I've been covering the team. Kenny Linsman, a real popular player, the Rat, if you will, part of the 35-game unbeaten team. He was sent in a trade for Mark Howe out of Hartford. Mark Howe turned into the best defenseman I've ever seen in Philadelphia. Just a smooth, elegant player. I used to just like to watch practice, to watch Mark Howe skate. It was just so beautiful to watch him skate. People forgot he was a forward at first. He comes back and plays defense and whatever you asked him to do. And he was one of those guys. People say you just lead by your example on the ice. And he led by his example. Nothing bothered him. Some players would tell you, I don't read anything. Mark Howe didn't read anything. I swear to God, no matter what he didn't know. He didn't read a paper. He honestly didn't. He just went out, played the game. He was like Mr. Hockey 2, if you will. And he had a great reverence for the game, and he had a great reverence for that team, but he was leaned upon so heavily in those years. And he got to mix with a guy like Timmy Kerr. Timmy was just this, he was like a big golden retriever was his personality, just wag his tail. But he had the spunk of a Rottweiler. So it was this weird combination of this nicest guy, and then he'd go out on the ice and just snarl. You know, nobody could move him out of the front of the net. Nobody could stop that wrist shot. It was just a terrific combination of him up front, and then Mark Howe kind of have things at the back. And the Beast, Brad McCrimmon had the nickname the Beast, and he just played a gritty. Brad McCrimmon was like one of those guys, you wind him up in October and it would unwind finally in May. And you just absolutely no maintenance at all. Wind him up, send him out there, he plays, shut up, come in, take your shower and go home. And Keenan benefited from that because if you had issues, you know, they kind of grind on Keenan, but these guys were the perfect mix for him.
I remember the year we lost Edmonton in 7 games. We had Game 6 at home. And the warm-up was basically filled, and it was unbelievably loud. And then at the start of the game, I always tell people it went so loud it went quiet. And unless you're on the ice for that kind of a rush and that kind of a noise, you don't really understand. But when you're on the ice and you're the focal point of all that noise, it just went quiet. And it was certainly a sound I've never heard again, but it was one I'll remember.
My most vivid memory from that brawl was, and some of the guys already had their skates off and stuff, I remember John Kordick for the Canadians, who I don't even know if he was dressing either, but he was out for warm-up. I remember him sitting on the Montreal Canadiens bench, tying his skates up, kind of watching the brawl, and Darryl Stanley standing on the ice outside the bench waiting for him to come out, kind of like a ho-hum, okay, tie your skates up and then come out, we're going to fight. Because those two guys were two tough guys, and they probably had fought each other before. But just Kordick, you know, nonchalantly doing his skates up, you know, watching, and then he stepped out on the ice, and then him and Stanley, okay, here we go, you know, and they went at it.
I remember a short story going into Tim Hortons for coffee with our coaching staff one morning, and one of the local radio celebrities was standing outside with a microphone yelling at our hotel and waking the players up at 7 o'clock in the morning, coming into Tim Hortons and yelling and wanting to talk with Hitch and yelling at Hitch, and our coaching staff got upset about it, and we just didn't enjoy what was going on in that situation. But that was a very intense rival, and in the game that finally ended the series in Toronto, I remember Sammy Kapanen getting hit so hard by Darcy Tucker, he was dazed, couldn't get up. He tried 3-4 times to get up, struggled to the bench, players reaching over top of the boards, pulling him on, and wouldn't you know it, as soon as JR jumps on the ice, the puck comes out of the Toronto zone and he goes in and scores the winning goal, and everybody just broke loose. It was incredible, incredible series.
Well, I was really fat, I can tell you that. I had a big gut hanging over, and I said, this is where it pays to be like a bear who hibernates, just save up the fat for a big game like this. We had all kinds of guys, obviously, some guys were taking IVs, some guys were doing, obviously the guys that played a lot more than the average bear were out there a ton. So we had to keep those guys fresh in the mind as well. And I can remember actually going on for a shift, standing at center ice right in front of our bench and looking one way, looking the other way, and saying change, and looking on the bench and climbing back in as quick as I could as my legs just completely cramped. And everyone was laughing about that too. So again, specifically, I don't know if there's a whole lot that you can remember, because things are happening as slow as it seems to be unfolding on TV. It's happening pretty quickly for the guys that are playing and the guys that are in that dressing room. It seemed like the intermissions were 5 minutes long, because you wanted to curl up in a ball and have a nap and then go back out there. But by the time you'd taken your gear to get it dried, you're going back on the ice. So as slow as the night might have seemed for fans, it was a short night for us as players, because everything seemed to be happening so quickly.
He was the color man originally, and then became the voice of the Flyers. And Gene was pretty amazing. In those early years, he was a school teacher, and of course, we couldn't afford big salaries, and we were doing our own television, producing it ourselves and selling the ads ourselves and buying the time on the TV station. And Gene kept his job as a school teacher, yet made every road game and got back the next day in time for school. And how he did it in those days, I'll never know. But he managed to get back from every city after every game and to be in school at 9 a.m. ready for his students. He was an amazing guy, and I'll never forget hearing his broadcast when we won the first cup. At the end, when we won the cup, it's just, we hear those words in our sleep, and it was just so incredible, and it's just typical of Gene Hart.
You know, I made more money for him than I did for myself. Yeah, in 1972, the Flyers drafted him, and I told Jimmy I'd represent him, and he said fine. So I started talking to Keith Allen, and I made a better deal for my brother Jim. He was making more money for him than I was for myself in those days, but I eventually caught up to him. And but you know what? We were the fourth brother combination ever to play on a team that won the Stanley Cup. So it was really nice to play with Jimmy. And you know, Jimmy was a real good hockey player. I mean, he was a better skater than I was, faster, and shoot the puck and all that stuff. And I was kind of a plumber type. You know, I tried to battle out in the corners in front of the net, but we were two different players. He was a much better skater and great shot and pass the puck. And in 1976, I had a bad injury. He was playing for Team Canada against the Team Canada series up in Canada, and he got hit with a puck. I think it was this guy shot him, broke his nose and his cheekbone, and lost some teeth and everything else. But it was a wonderful experience to play with your brother and be in a Stanley Cup together and march down Broad Street together. And our parents were here at the time, so that was very rewarding. I think rewarding for them too.
we were playing a game in Detroit, and we were just getting ready to head out to L.A. And Mike Keenan came in, and Mike says, okay, guys, we win this game today. You have the next 2 days off in L.A. You can have a good time. And then we had the game like 5 days later, something like that. So we come out, we're losing 3 or 4 to 1 at the end of the first period. Mike came in ranting and raving and screaming. He said, all right, I'll tell you. He says, I'll give you 3 days off if you guys win this game. So Mike goes out and Tim curses. Don't worry about it, guys. We got this game won. I think we scored 6 or 7 goals. I think Timmy had 3 goals and 2 assists or something.
Funny story I can tell you about Russia. Freddie went to Russia after they won the first Stanley Cup because he wanted to that summer. I saw him back at training camp the next day. And soon he got back, first day of training camp. And I said, now, Freddie, what was Russia like? And he looked at me and he says, it's amazing, there's no crime in Russia. I said, really, Freddie, why is that? And he said, it's not allowed. So, of course, there is crime in Russia, but that was, that's the way Freddie kind of looked at things.
I remember once he came into Keith Allen and he said, I want to be traded. And Keith said, what's wrong? I just want to be traded. And Keith called me and told me, and we talked it over, and we conducted an investigation to the best of our ability. And we found out that there was another player that we had that we were sort of babying and allowing to do things that you really shouldn't allow in an organization, which we really hadn't focused on. And we realized that Barry Ashby didn't want to be part of that. And he actually taught us a lesson. And we changed our ways tremendously because of that. He was just a solid individual. And I'm sure you've already heard from others that he played with injuries you never knew that Barry even had an injury. He just was that solid.
One of the things that I remember to this day, which and I'll never forget, was when we hit the ice at what was then called the Spectrum. You had a capacity crowd that were hollering and screaming when we hit the ice. Must have been a 7-minute ovation, and I could be standing beside a teammate and try to tell him something, and he wouldn't be able to hear me. That's how loud the people were, and that's something that, like I said, I'll never forget. But we didn't intimidate Montreal because they won the next 3, and that was a series. But that was a real pleasant memory.
And I used to go down and block a lot of shots, and I took a great deal of pride in that. And the shot, I could see the shot coming, and I went down to block it. And just as I went down to block it, Billy Hickey skated in front of me, and I lost sight of the puck. And the next thing I know, it's about 6 inches from me, and it hit me right in the mouth. And yeah, I lost 7 teeth and 52 stitches, and I was in my macho stage. I was the captain of the team at that time, and you know, you got to go back in and get sewed up and come on back out. And that's exactly what I did. And that doesn't say that I was, I guess, courageous or anything else. That's just the way, you know, hockey was played, especially at that time. And one of the memories I have from that, Senator Hubert Humphrey at that time was interested in becoming the President of the United States, and I received a letter from him, and the letter was something that I take a great deal of pride in. It was very kind, very, very, I guess, expressing the way he felt about, you know, what had happened, and I guess the character to have gone through it and came back out and played, and it had his stamp on it and his signature on it, and to this day I value it. In fact, I've got it framed as one of my most important pieces of memorabilia.
Reggie used a very, very short stick with this very small blade. It was almost like a child stick. And if you looked at Reggie's stick on the bench before the game where they were stacked up there, he always drew a little smiley face with a magic marker on the heel of the stick. It was just something that he always did.
unlike me, who can be sloppy at times with things. Every fact had to be, he's an English teacher, so he was like, you know, everything had to be perfect. And I remember I had the wrong goalie in a game. It was Edmonton goalie, and he just was on me about that forever. The fact that one guy was black and one was white didn't help. Was maybe the biggest mistake in my career. But he would be all over me because he, and rightfully so, he said everything has to be accurate. It was accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. But beyond that, you could tell that he was a guy that just loved doing his job. If he wasn't singing opera, which was annoying, it was just, he was just talking your ear off about hockey. And sometimes, I have to admit, I was just a little tired of talking hockey. Gene was never tired of talking hockey.
In the first parade, we were in open cars in convertibles, so we weren't all together. And the car that I was in with my wife overheated about 3 blocks into the parade, and so it had to be pushed. And these fans pushed us from, you know, almost 2 or 3 miles all the way into the city because the car overheated and just stopped. And by the time we got there, I remember we used to wear safari jackets back in those days, and the sleeve from my jacket had been ripped off. So I had this suit on with only one sleeve, looked like I'd been through a war. And all the way along, people kept giving us things, and champagne and beer, and it was really a crazy party.
I can almost remember everything about those years and the parades. I can remember the Monday night games against California. I can remember the Thursday night 8 o'clock starts. You know, I went to practice every chance I got. I used to steal Rick McLeish's sticks all the time. Used to ask, you know, for Bobby Clark's autograph all the time, and you know, eventually he finally looked at me and said, "How many of these do you have?" And you know, I just loved it. You know, Terry Crisp and Bernie Perrant, and just being around. You know, the guys, I still remember guys treating me so great, like Jimmy McKenzie, the equipment trainer. He used to sharpen my skates all the time, and now I have our guys here sharpening my boys' skates, and I still talk about Jim McKenzie, you know, Frankie Lewis, guys like that. These guys treated me great around the locker room, and I was always very respectful too, which I want my boys to be around our players here, that it was always Mr. Clark or Mr. McLeish or Mr. Perrant, and you know, so it was just a great time in my life, and you know, I'm very fortunate I was, you know, old enough to remember that.
In 1973, when I came back from Toronto to the Flyers, they had big headlines in the papers in Philly. Perrant is back in town and should have helped the team win the Stanley Cup. The first exhibition game against the Rangers, as a matter of fact, I stepped on the ice. Big standing ovation. You know, my ego was as high as the sky, and 10 minutes later, the Rangers had scored 8 goals against me. So, needless to say, it went from a standing ovation to throwing stuff at me on the ice. But you know, it's a little bit funny now, but at the time it wasn't. But that year we came back, and we won the Stanley Cup. So, a little message behind this that don't give up when it's dark out there. The sun will shine again.
Bunch of Canadians just in town, you know, just young 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds and stuff like that, and we sort of got taken over by the fans here, because everywhere you went, you were known and stuff like that. And we did win the 2 parades, and they were, you know, 2 of the biggest parades I ever saw, because you know, you couldn't even go to the bathroom. I had to get on a policeman's horse, and he rode the horse in the show. When I got off, went to the bathroom, got back on the horse, got back in the caravan. So, you know, they take care of you. And the fans here are they're great. They're the best, sporting-wise, they're the best fans around.
The other was a game in Boston. It was when NBC was broadcasting the NHL. They had been promoting for weeks this game the Flyers were going to play it Sunday afternoon in Boston. It was going to be Bernie Perrant against Jerry Cheevers. It was a big thing. They'd been promoting it for weeks. Bernie had played 22 consecutive games. The teams come out for warm-up, and Bobby Taylor comes out first and takes the warm-up. Scotty Connell, who was the famous producer for NBC in those days, was apoplectic, and he ran around. He found Freddie sitting in the bowels of Boston Garden and said, "Freddie, what is this? Why isn't Bernie Parent playing? Well, why is Bobby Taylor playing?" And Freddie looked up at him and said, "Geez, it's his turn." So that was Freddie.
We've talked about the great camaraderie and family feeling that the Flyers emanate. And actually this necklace is part of a very special story to me with the Flyers. You always hear how the measure of great success is truly shown in how people face their adversity, along with their triumphs, but really how they face their adversity. And the Flyers have certainly had their share. The loss of Barry Ashby and players and family members along the way, including my father, who passed away in 1999 from complications of cancer. And very shortly after that, I was diagnosed with cancer, 6 months.
It is amazing. Everybody had a nickname back on our team.
You know, it was like Animal House.
Billy Barber's name's the Pig. You got to figure that one out. I'm sure he can explain that one for you. We got Rick McCliss as the Hog.
McLeish swooping in on him to center ice for Philadelphia.
I got it from swooping the way I skate with long hair and stuff like that.
We had the Moose, which was Moose Dupont.
Actually, Dupont, when he played junior, he was Pompon de Train Dupont, okay, whatever that means in French. So I guess we just added the Moose.
And mine, Big Bird, came from, it was just happened to be in warm-ups in a game, and I had pretty long hair. Sesame Street was big back then, and some kid was watching us warm up and said, "That guy looks like Big Bird," to his mother. Bobby Clark heard it, and it was all over.
The very first day I went to training camp, I'm a rambunctious kid out of junior hockey, and I flattened Joe Watson, and he got up, and by then, you know, general manager was sitting in the stands, and I said, yells, "Hey, Keith, where'd you get this mad dog from?" After about 2 years, I said, "You know, this is not good. I mean, it's kind of sticking. It's nice to have a nickname, but, you know, with kids and all that, I mean, we switched it to Hound, so basically in pursuit of the hockey puck."
For different reasons, you get a nickname. And again, mine was, you know, actually started by a writer.
And go at it they do as Howard keeps pumping the right hand, and now the right hand of Schultz is loose.
I know that one game he said, you know, "Boy, do you ever hammer that guy?" And then there came my nickname, the Hammer.
My nickname was given to me by Keith Allen. He was calling me the Riverton Rifle since I was from Riverton, Manitoba. And since I could shoot the puck so hard, and, you know, I was clocked at about 110 a couple times, it stuck with me.
Holy cow! Reggie Leach!
Joe Watson, when you talk to him, I mean, Thundermouth, you can understand they didn't have telephones and Smithers, they just yelled from mountain to mountain.
He can speak in public and he doesn't need a microphone. Okay, he can be pretty loud.
Orris Kinderchuk, we called him Oscar the Grouch, and, you know, if you interview Orris and you get to know Orris, he always is a little bit dour. He's not the kind of guy that's the most congenial guy in the world, so he deserved his name.
Cowboy Flat. I mean, wore a cowboy hat all the time.
Eddie Van Imp to Zamboni. I mean, you know, when he flattened the Russian there, you know, and they left the ice, I mean, there's a reason why he was called that.
Clarky's name was, once in a while we call him Whitey, because his face was always so white when he played, and so it's something that, you know, everybody knew their nicknames and everything else, so it worked out great.
Long before professional teams sort of did these public carnivals or special days out, the Flyers were on the game, and they created the Flyers Wives Carnival.
During the years that the Stanley Cup years, as we affectionately call them, the wives got together and really wanted a way to give back to the community. And we thought it would be great if we could come up with an event that was sort of ours, like a signature event. So I remember going in to see Mr. Snyder and asking if he would give us the building, if we could come up with an idea, and he said, "Sure, for charity, I think that would be great."
Well, I was on the board of the Izbradsky Cancer Institute at Hahnemann Hospital and University, and they wondered if there was a fundraiser that we could have that would benefit the Cancer Institute. So I came back to our people, and after they brainstormed, we had a PR man. He came up with the idea for the carnival.
We had our first carnival, and we hired a carnival company, and we had games and whatever, and it was a resounding success. Little did we know that the following year, one of our friends and players, Barry Ashby, unfortunately got leukemia and died within months, and after that, we just couldn't let go because that was our cause.
For me, the first one was great, and my husband was here, and the second one, he had already died, so they made it in memory of him.
The bottom line is that through Barry, you know, we've helped a lot of families, a lot of people, a lot of children, and hopefully, you know, battle this cancer.
Over the years, we raised so much money that the hospital where he had been treated, there's a whole floor with his name on it. After a number of years, we were getting so many letters from hundreds of other worthy causes, and we just felt that it was time. It was time to spread the wealth a little bit. We probably net about $1 million a year on average, which is unbelievable for any charity event.
I thought it was really neat to have some people come up and say, this is my 20th year coming, or I used to come with my parents, or, you know, my grandpa used to take me.
The key to the event's success is that the players are 100% involved.
It's a wonderful opportunity to give back to the community, and what they do and the awareness they raise and the money they raise really is tremendous and a worthwhile cause.
What better way to get an autograph, get a photo with your favorite player, just sort of come close to these heroes that so many people never get to see. And it actually is a tool to gain more fans. Fans in Philadelphia never leave you.
It's a big opportunity for the Flyers to give back, and they work on it all year. There's a lot of little people involved to make it work, and that's something that's very steady in the Flyers organization. They do it every year. You know, it doesn't matter what the team is doing. It doesn't matter if they're winning or losing or whatever. People can always count on the carnival.
Corner, forward checking Ben Wilson. Clark steals along the right wing boards at the circle and dives. He scores!
He thoroughly enjoyed his life's work. And I didn't know that this was the one thing that he wanted to do beyond everything until I found out about an autograph book in which he had written, "My goal in life, to be an NHL broadcaster."
Gene loved the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, he had the logo stamped on his heart.
It was just absolutely lived and died by the Philadelphia Flyers. And you know, he's the perfect broadcaster of the Philadelphia Flyers. You'd have to tune in your radio and you'd listen, you know, right away if you're turning in that we're either winning or losing, because you could hear it in his voice.
To the point and a half. Screen shot.
He had fun with doing his job. In other words, if anyone in life got their dream job, it was Gene Hart.
You know what's going to happen to me now. Oh, you got him. It's a pleasure, Genie.
Gene was Mr. Hockey. I remember I went to his house and I'm thinking, he's crazy. He had these cups or mugs or something over the mantle on his fireplace, and every morning he'd arrange them in like the standings. I'm like, well, I like hockey, but I can't do that. But he was so into it.
I'll never forget hearing his broadcast when we won the first cup. At the end, when we won the cup, it's just, we hear those words in our sleep.
Just so natural. He's representing the Flyer fans when he's saying, you know, the Flyers win the Stanley Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers win the Stanley Cup. It's almost, he's amazed. I gotta say it again to make sure that the Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
It gives me the chills when I hear it still. And it's so ingrained into the minds and the hearts of hockey fans in Philadelphia that people still talk about it to this day.
He was the great broadcaster at a perfect time. He taught the Delaware Valley NHL hockey in general for that matter.
It's Gene Hart. Good night, good hockey.
To actually see a piece of history, it was great just to be there.
And Hextall able to clear it out. Boy, he could score a goal sometimes in a situation like this. Hextall is so strong in clearing. Traps it. Here he goes, bidding for one. Here's the clear. Here it is. He scores!
You knew he was going to try it, and it finally happened for him, and everybody was like thrilled. It was like he won the scoring title.
Hextall scored a goal on the empty net.
Well, I think it was something that the media kind of bugged me about for at least a few months. When are you going to score? And I kind of promised them I would.
No goaltender has done in the National Hockey League what Hextall just did.
My job, the forechecker, was trying to cut in, and all I did was kind of make him detour and go around, and puck handling goalie, that's all you had to do, give him a little extra second. So he had the puck on the stick, and I made the guy take a detour more to the middle of the rink. Hex, he shot it, and I said, oh good, the game's going to be over, because all we had to do was get the puck out, and we won the game. And then I'm watching the puck go down, I saw this thing might go in the net, and after one in the net, I said, oh my God, that was a goalie, he shot the puck in the net.
It's too bad he didn't play some other position. He would have been, I think he was a great goalie, but he might have been even better at a different position.
Here comes Scott Stevens to center, drives it in. Peters makes his way to the bench. Capitals throw on a sixth attacker, and the puck bounds all the way down and into the goal.
The second one in Washington was like a bonus time. You know, we do it again just to prove that there's no fluke or anything like that.
I was just waiting for the right opportunity, get the puck at the right moment, you know, hopefully a 2-goal lead or shorthanded. And I remember Stevens dumped it around, I corralled it, and I had to get the puck out of the zone. Obviously, if you're going to do that, you might as well at least take a shot.
We've seen history made here. The second time that he's done it in his career in a National Hockey League game, and the first time it's ever been done in a Stanley Cup playoff game.
If you're at the game, you want to save that stub. That's one of those pieces you see the video of, you see the picture of. It's part of their history, and it's playing right out there in front of you.
Ron Hextall has got greatness in his blood.
The Spectrum was wild, and boy, if you didn't get up for a game at the Spectrum, I don't care if you're a home team or a visiting player, you had something wrong with you.
The Spectrum was a building that you didn't want to come into and play very often. It was a tough building. We made it a tough building to play in.
Well, to us it was home. To the opposition coming in, it was a hellhole to come into play.
It's intimidating, but as a hockey player, once you get away from the nerves and the players that are on the ice and you get into it, it was a lot of fun to play at.
The fans were right on top of you. They were loud, they were vocal, and they let you know it if they didn't like you.
I always said that the crowd in Philly was 75% of our success. There's no question in my mind. You know, when you stepped on the ice, you had 17,000, 18,000 people cheering for you, and the natural high that you get in a situation like this was just incredible.
It's incredible, the electricity in this building tonight.
The last game that we played there, the old alumni guys were back. The players put on sweaters and skated around with who they thought matched up with players in the glory days.
I skated with Bob Daly. It's probably the size. We were both big guys, and it was pretty amazing.
The closing of the old Spectrum was a sad time for me. I'd played there, and so many great memories, so many great ghosts of Flyer hockey floating around that building.
Today, in my opinion, is still a unique building. It's a thrill to walk into it. You see the amount of banners that are hanging from the ceiling. It's a very, very special building.
I think if you look back at the league when all these different teams had their own different arenas, like the Chicago Stadium, the Montreal Forum, you had character in those buildings. They weren't as big as the buildings are today. It was closer knit, and it was a lot louder. And the Phantoms are playing there now, and I think that they feel that same sense of closeness.
Timmy Kerr deserved a moment of just bright white spotlights, and especially on Broadway. He was the guy they went to, the key situations. Pressure didn't bother him. 8 guys all over him didn't bother him. And the fact that it came against the Rangers was just perfect.
4 goals in one period, much less 4 goals in a game, is something that you'll always remember.
Hanlon can't stop it. Zezel on the far side. It goes to Sinisalo in the corner. Behind the net, Zezel in front. Shot, score by Kerr. Incredible, like a lightning bolt. Play, Huber really drilled him. There's the puck into the Ranger zone to the left of Hanlon on a deflection. He clears it right back to the stick of Kerr. In front, open net as Hanlon couldn't make the play. The Rangers come out in front. Hurd, got it, scored! Timmy Kerr!
Timmy Kerr, I always felt he had to win 4 games in the series. Timmy Kerr could always win us 1 game. That was the 1 game that series he won for us.
It was just one after the other, and you just get him back out on the ice. When you have a hot shooter, get him the puck and tell him to shoot all the time.
The recipients, thanks to drinks tonight, $400. Howe right there, drive! Ooh, and Hanlon just got it on the outside of the right skate. Into the left wing corner, Zezel in front, score! Timmy Kerr with a pure hat trick. He's gotten Flyers goals, number 3, number 4, and number 5.
Oh, he was a machine. Out of 10 or 11 shifts that period, he scored 4 goals.
Laylaw to work into the right circle. Drops it in front. Kerr scores! Holy cow! He's got 4 goals in a row!
That was special. That was, even he realized when it was going on, this is really special. And you can tell when you're talking to a guy afterwards, you kind of look at you like, and he rarely would do this, like, you know, I really played a good one. And for him to kind of acknowledge it, that was like premier performance.